Building an online shop with WordPress is easy, right? Well, yes, as long as you know how to do it, it certainly can be. Today, I'm going to take you through each of the steps required to not only build an online shop with WordPress and WooCommerce, but I'm also going to show you how you can do it with totally free tools. Hosting and domain registration aside, of course, you are going to need to pay for those. Not only that, it'll also look great and be fast and responsive too. Sound too good to be true? Then join me as I go through each stage of building the site. A quick note before we start though, I will be covering an awful lot of ground in this video, and while it would be great to cover each and every feature in detail, the tutorial will be like 10 hours long. So where applicable, I'll reference dedicated tutorials on a particular feature and pop links in the description to each one of those so you can learn more on any of those topics should you want to. Oh, and there's also full timestamps in the description just for your ease. Okay, so let's get on with the tutorial. Let's start this off by taking a quick look at the type of thing we're going to create. So we've got a really clean, minimal looking site. We've got the various different sections you can jump through to. We've got a customized footer. Everything is all set up, all nice and clean and simple. We can hop over and take a look at shopping if we want to. We've got a multi-level navigation, so you can see if we go to the categories, for example, we can click, we can go into one of our categories. Inside there, we've got, again, a really nice, clean, consistent look across our entire setup. We've got product filters, we've got price filters, sale filters. We can jump through to our shop. We can filter directly inside here if we want to. We've got loads and loads of different simple options, including, like I say, the price slider. So this is the type of thing that we're going to create in today's tutorial. First of all, we need a domain and somewhere to actually host our website. For today's video, I'll be using SiteGround as they offer some very competitive pricing on their WordPress plans. Now, if you prefer to use an alternative, by all means, feel free to do so. With SiteGround, we're going to be choosing the managed WordPress hosting because it gives us some WordPress related features. So we click on Get Started, we can take a look at the different plans that they have. Now currently there are 3 key plans: Startup, Grow Big and Go Geek. If all you're doing is hosting one single website, I would say the Startup plan is going to be perfectly fine for most use cases. If you want to have more than one website though, Grow Big might be a better option, and obviously if you have more resources needed, well, Go Geek. The nice thing with this though is if you started with Startup and then you found you outgrew it, you can easily upgrade to the Grow Big account very, very easily. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to do using SiteGround. So let's get the ball rolling by choosing the Startup plan, and then we'll go through and see how easy it is to purchase everything. Now the first thing you're going to come across is, do you want to register a new domain? And your domain is just basically the www.mywebsite.com. That's what your domain basically is. So we're going to say we want to register one. So the first thing I'm going to need to do here is go through and search to find a domain that's going to be available and also in keeping with what I want to use for my website. So I'm going to pop in the domain that I'm looking for. There's my domain, and then you can see we've got what's called the domain extension. So we've got currently .co.uk because I'm based in the UK, but you can still choose from a range of different options. You could be looking for a .com, you could be looking for anything, a .org, .net, whatever is applicable to you. I'm going to choose the .com at this point, and we're going to see if that's available. So you can see we've got the option to register this domain. It's going to cost us £11.95 per year, excluding any taxes. Obviously, you need to check out what the price is going to be depending upon what country you're in. And we'll say proceed. That's going to go now check to see if that domain is available to me. If it is, you can see it tells me congratulations, that's available. And now I can pop in the rest of my details. So I'm going to fill these out, and then we're going to move on to the next stage. So all you need to do is fill out your payment information, all those kinds of things. And you can see, before we do move on, there's these hosting services. Now just make sure that you only check the things that you want at this point. It tells us the plan we're using, which is Startup. It tells us the data center, in other words, where all our files are going to reside, where the server that has all of our files is going to be. Because I'm based in the UK, it's thinking that the UK is going to be the best option. But this is something worth bearing in mind. If you're building a website and your target audience is in a different country to where you are, it would make sense to change the data center, in other words, like I say, where all your files are going to reside, to a location that's closer to your target audience. So if your target audience is in the USA, you may want to choose some US-based servers. This just means They're going to find your website's going to be faster, more responsive, and they're just going to have a better experience using it. So if you want to change that, you can hit the little refresh and it'll go through and you can choose things. Then you've got the period. How long do you want to take out the hosting plan for? Now, as long as we take it over 12 months or more, we'll tend to get a better deal with SiteGround, and it's always worth checking out any deals that might be ongoing because they do run deals from time to time. So you can see if we go for 1 month, that's going to give us a much more expensive price of $16.99 per month plus VAT or taxes. However, if we go for the 12 months, you can see that drops to $5.99 a month. Or if we go higher than that, you can see we can change that. But at the moment, the best deal is most definitely going to be for the 12 months. Then you've got extra services. Domain registration, because we chose to have a domain registered, but obviously if you didn't choose that, it won't be checked. Then you've got domain privacy and you've got the SiteGround site scanner. Now, domain privacy basically means when you register a domain, you don't want any of the information associated with your company, your individual, your name, address, anything like that to be made publicly available. So domain privacy is something you can apply to the domain, and that will then make all that information hidden from site. It's very useful if you want to avoid having lots and lots of phone calls trying to sell you web design services once you register a domain. However, for our example today, I'm not going to select that, but think about whether you want it for something yourself. And the SG Site Scanner is just basically a service that runs on top of your website to check, just to make sure that there's monitoring on your website to check for malware, all different kinds of things, viruses and so on. Again, if you want that for peace of mind, you can use that here, but there are plenty of other services you could use that will do a similar thing, so you don't have to use that as part of SiteGround. And for this example, I'm going to leave those two options disabled. This gives me the running total then, any taxes that are applicable, and then I can confirm this, and if I want to receive any news or special offers from SiteGround by email, I can check that option. So once that's done, we'll pay that, and then we're going to move on. Now, once you've done that, you're going to have a couple of emails, you're going to have to fill out your details, and you have to confirm your account. Once all that is done, and you're logged into your SiteGround home section, this is where we can start working on our site. So when you log into SiteGround, this is what you're going to see first of all. You can see we've got home where we are, which gives us some tips and some information and different things that SiteGround offers. What we want though is basically to jump over to the websites option. Inside there, it's going to give us any of the website services we have, including hosting, all those different things. You can see there's our website, what plan we're currently using, and then we have some options like Site Tools, WordPress Kit, which is specific tools for WordPress, and a lot of other options. Now, we're not going to go through all these because, well, there's a lot of options and I don't really think we need to cover them in this video. I'd rather show you how you can get yourself up and running quickly and easily. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Site Tools. And inside there, this is kind of like our dashboard. And this is where we can control lots of different things to do with our hosting plan, our domain, our websites, and so on and so forth. Now, the first thing we need to do is apply an SSL certificate to our domain. Now, all an SSL certificate is a way of the server where your site resides encrypting any information that's sent via any kind of form. So if someone uses your contact form or the comments as part of your website, this will encrypt that data, which means that it can't be viewed by anybody and intercepted by anybody. Just adds an extra little level of security. This is where you see the little padlock symbol and all those kinds of things you're used to when you're shopping online. We're going to do that. And the nice thing with SiteGround is we have a totally free option. So what we're going to do is underneath the security section, we're going to come into SSL Manager. And inside there, we can set up where we want to apply this SSL certificate. Now, I've got a couple of domains and subdomains and things inside my account, so don't worry, yours is going to look a little different, but the process is exactly the same no matter how you've got yours set up. First thing you need to do is select the domain you want to apply the SSL to. So we're going to choose our primary domain, which we've just purchased. Then it says select the SSL. Now, I've already done this on mine, but you'll see the same kind of thing. First option you'll have will be Let's Encrypt. And any other options you can basically ignore. All you want to do is choose Let's Encrypt. Once you've done that, click on Get. This will take a couple of minutes to go through, and once that's completed, you have an SSL certificate applied to your site. We need to do one more thing though before this is all fully working. We just need to go to the next option, which is HTTPS Enforce, and choose that. And what this is going to do, this is going to list any of the domains or subdomains that you have as part of your site. So again, look for the domain that you have, which you've just purchased, And then you're going to need to just flick this little switch on the right hand side. That will then enforce secure connections. So any links that may be part of the site that are not secure will be forced over, so you don't have to worry about doing any of these technical kinds of things manually. It's all catered for, all as part of your SiteGround account. And that's basically how we purchase, set up basic hosting and the things that we need to do. Now we have the hosting set up, it's time to install both WordPress and WooCommerce. Thankfully, SiteGround makes this really easy to do. So now we've got our account set up on SiteGround, we're ready to start doing some of the most important things before we even build our website, and that is setting up all the security options. Now to do that with SiteGround is incredibly easy. We can use the free SSL certificate. If you don't know what an SSL certificate is, it's just a way of encrypting any data that's sent via your website. Could be contact forms, payment information, all those kinds of things. They'll be encrypted before they get sent over via the server. This means that hacking your website and causing problems with payment and so on is pretty much removed. Gives you an extra level of security and makes your online purchasers feel a lot more secure, knowing that that data is encrypted before they make any kind of online order. To do that, like I say, is really easy in SiteGround. All we're going to do is go to websites, and that's going to list any of the websites we have. So if we have multiple domains, all those kinds of things, they'll all be listed inside here. We have the wpprowebsite.com one. We're going to go to Site Tools. And once we're inside there, we're going to open up the security options. Then we're going to choose the SSL manager, and that will allow us then to choose any domain or subdomain or anything like that we've got as part of our account and apply a free SSL certificate to it. To do that, all we need to do is choose the domain we want, which in this example is the wpprowebsite.com, and then we're going to just choose the option to say let's encrypt. Now this is the free option, so like I say, this is super easy to do. All we need to do is click on get, and that will then take a couple of minutes to go through, assign that SSL certificate to our domain, and then all we need to do is enforce that HTTPS to make sure that all traffic is pushed over to our nice secure connection. There we go, there's our certificate all set up. All we need to do now is go to the HTTP enforce underneath the security options, and from there we're just going to flick this little switch that says this particular website is going to be using HTTPS, and we are job done. That's our security all set up, so all we need to do. Next thing, we're going to come over to WordPress, and from there we're going to say install and manage. And now we can choose to install WordPress on its own, or what we want to do, which is WordPress and WooCommerce together. So we're going to choose select on there, and then we can simply choose what domain we want to associate this with. Now you can see wpprowebsite.com is already selected, and that's exactly what we want. But like I say, if you have multiple domains or subdomains inside here, you could choose from any of the options you have. Installation path, we're going to leave that because we want this to be underneath the .com. We don't want any subdirectories or any other kind of thing confusing matters. The language, we're going to set this in my example to English UK, but obviously you'd set that to whatever is relevant to you. We then have install with WordPress starter. We're going to disable that because I don't want any of the extra things that SiteGround will try to put onto the site. We're going to keep this nice and clean, and we are going to control everything we want. Next up, we've got the username, password, and email. So I'm going to put in some details in there, which is going to be my username, password, and email address to log into this new website. There we go, there's all my details, and we're not going to choose the option to install WordPress multi-site because we just want this to be a simple site. So we'll click install on there, and that will then go through the process of installing all the software and getting everything set up ready for us to start working with WordPress and WooCommerce. And after a couple of moments, it's all done for us. And now we can log into the admin panel, or we can view the site itself. So let's click to log into the admin panel, and that'll take us straight into the admin for our new WordPress website. Now, because we haven't set anything up to do with WooCommerce, that's the first thing we can do. Now, we can choose to do it now, or we can choose to do it later. For example, let's keep things simple and in the order you will probably encounter them, and go through the process of setting things up right now. So the first thing we're going to see is the Welcome to WooCommerce, where we can go through the little wizard and set everything up, at least the basics to start off with. So what we're going to see first of all is to go through and choose the address that our store is located in. Now I'm just going to fill out some basic fill of information here because, well, this is just a test store, but obviously you would put your online shop's location, making sure that everything is correct. So I'm just going to choose some basic info for me, and we're just going to put in some filler text basically. I'm going to say CF11. Okay, so once we've done that, We're going to continue on to the next stage. We're going to say no thanks to this particular option. I don't want usage tracking on my store. Next up, we can say what industry do we operate in. Now, this isn't overly important. It may give you some later options as you go through and set things up, but everything is totally editable inside WooCommerce anyway. For our example, though, we're going to say home and furniture and garden. I'm going to uncheck any other options, and then we're just going to choose continue. Then we can choose the product types. Now, we are only going to be potentially selling physical products. However, you can see using WooCommerce, we can choose to sell digital products, subscriptions, memberships, and so on. However, we don't want any of those, but they are there if you need them. And as you can see, there's the pricing as well for these extra options. These are paid for options. We're going to choose continue. And then we're going to say the business details. So how many products do you plan to display? You see, we can choose from all different numbers. I'm going to keep this really simple and say 11 to 100 for this example, but obviously you set what's relevant to you. Currently selling elsewhere? No, we're not. And if you want to sell anywhere here, you can read through what these offer you. I'm going to uncheck all of these for this particular option though. Let's choose continue. And then we can choose from a starting theme. And as you can see, this is going to show us a range of different themes that we can pick from. As you can see, a lot of these are paid for themes, but if we scroll back up, we can choose from a range of all themes, paid or free themes. And you see there's some options inside there. We'll leave that as it is for now. We'll add our theme in ourselves a little later. So we'll say skip this step, and then we can choose to install what's called Jetpack. Now Jetpack gives you extra options. However, I don't personally like it that much, so I'm going to just say no to that. But obviously, if this is something you want to look at, read through, do a little bit of research, and if you want it, install it. We're going to say no thanks. And that takes us in now into our dashboard. You can see, welcome to our WooCommerce Stores Online HQ. This is going to give you a little bit of a wizard and take you through a few different things about how this all works. So I would suggest if you're new to WooCommerce, take a little time, have a read through these different options. Once you finish it though, this is what you're going to get, which is a nice clean sort of interface where we can see the stages, the things that we've done, and we can get some overview of statistics, things like how much money you've made today, the week to date, the month to date, and so on. You can hop through and view more detailed statistics, and you can also install Jetpack directly from here. So we're going to say no thanks to that again. So there's some options here. Take a little bit of time, have a read through. You might find there's some information that's really useful. However, for us right now, we're going to concentrate more on these options, and then we'll move on to actually take a look at how we can set up the design side of things for our new online store. Now, shipping is a key component in many online shops, and with that in mind, let's take a look at how we can set some basic flat rate shipping up in WooCommerce. Now, if you want to learn more about shipping, I have a dedicated tutorial on just that. I'll link that in the description for you. Now, before we can sell anything on our store, we need to set a few things up. We need to set up payments, add some products, taxes if applicable, shipping, and anything else we might need to make sure our store is fully operational before we open it up to the world. So let's take a look first of all at setting up shipping. Now, if you don't intend to ship anything, then you can leave this section out. And there is a more detailed video on this, which I'll link in the description below. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of how to set things up. But first of all, let's just hop over into the shipping settings. So we'll choose to set up shipping. So you can see we've set the store location as part of the wizard to start off with. We can set the shipping costs, so we can define a flat rate shipping if we want to. Now, WooCommerce straight out of the box has a fairly robust shipping setup, but it's not the most feature rich. So you may find you'll need some additional tools for this if you need more comprehensive shipping options. But for most users and most basic cases, it should be more than enough. First thing we're going to do is just basically set a flat rate shipping cost. So you can see this is to the UK. Obviously, if you choose a different country when you set your store up, this is going to be different for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a flat rate fee of $4.99 inside there. You can see we have the option for rest of the world. So if you're shipping to other countries, you can choose rest of the world, select that, and then we can choose a flat fee to cover every other country other than the UK. Now, this is a really simplistic example. And then, like I say, I've covered in a lot more detail how to create more feature-rich ways of working with shipping inside WooCommerce, and the link is in the description to check that out. However, for this, we're just going to set this to the UK, the flat rate shipping. And then you can see there's a third option which enables shipping labels. Now, this is something you do have to pay for. However, I'm going to show you a free option a little later on when we look at how we can enhance how WordPress and WooCommerce work. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this set up, choose proceed, and we're going to say no thanks to the enable shipping label printing, and that's our shipping set up. However, if you want to go in and make more alterations to your shipping or change anything, you can simply come into the settings inside WooCommerce. And inside there, you can go to the shipping options, and you can see there's our flat rate shipping. There's our option for anything that's not covered, which was like, say, the rest of the world, which we just saw. However, you can come in and you can start editing and creating additional ways of shipping. And like I say, this is all fully covered in its own dedicated video where I can go into a little bit more detail and show you how you can get a lot more out of the shipping that's part of WooCommerce. So the shipping side of things in place, there's one more thing we need to do, and that's add a shipping class. And the shipping classes allow us to select that shipping class when we create a product. Without that, we can't apply any shipping to it. So all we need to do is from the shipping section is come into shipping classes, and inside there, we're just going to create a new class. So we're going to say add shipping class, and we're going to call this flat rate shipping. That's it. That's all we need to do. We'll save that class. And now when we create products and we need to apply a shipping class to it, this is all done for it. Next on our checklist is the setup taxes. Now you may not need to set taxes up, and that's fine. You can skip past this section using the timestamps below. However, if you need to, here's how. So again, we've set the store location, which is key to how we set up our taxes. And we're just going to say we want to configure things. Once you do that, this will take us into the tax section. And as you can see, we can choose our standard tax rates. There's things like reduced tax rate, zero tax rate, and so on. Again, a little bit too involved for what I want to cover in this particular video, but I do have a dedicated video to dealing with taxes inside WooCommerce. So again, link in the description. Check that out once you finish this video, and if you want to learn more about taxes. What we're going to do is, because I'm based in the UK, I'm simply going to show you how to insert a 20% VAT rate. So we'll say insert a row. First thing we need is to put the country code in. And again, you can see we've got information about how this works. So I'm in the UK, so my country code is going to be GB. State code, I'm not working with states or counties as they would call it in the UK, so we don't need to worry about that. This is going to cover the whole of the UK. So if you want to create different taxes for countries and states and postcodes and even cities, you can do that inside here by filling out these next three sections. However, for this example, it's covering all of my taxes inside the UK. So the tax rate we're going to set is 20%. And as you can see, the tax name, we're just going to call this VAT at 20%. So people can see exactly where it is. Priority 1, this is the most important, and in this case, the only one, but you can adjust the priority to make sure you've got everything covered for yourself in there. Is this compound tax? In other words, choose whether or not this compound tax rate and whether it's applied on top of other tax rates. So again, if you have multiple tax rates, might be compound tax rate, which means you add them all together. Choose the option if it's relevant to you. And then we've got the shipping option, choosing whether you want to apply this particular tax rate to the shipping as well as any of the products that people purchase. So if you're applying this on top of your shipping charge, you check it. If it isn't, you can uncheck it. We can save the changes, and that's our tax rate setup. You can repeat this process now for any additional taxes, configuring them exactly as you need to, using exactly the same principles as I've just shown you. And that's our tax side of things set up. An online shop without any way to take payments wouldn't be much use to anyone. So in this step, we're going to see how to set up Stripe as your payment gateway. Now, if you'd like me to show you how to set up WooCommerce payment gateways in more detail, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll create some more content focusing on that. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is set up payments. So we're going to choose that option. Now we can set up various different kinds of payments: Stripe, PayPal, cash on delivery, even direct bank transfer. This is what's included as part of WooCommerce as it comes out of the box. However, you can get third-party add-ons that open up additional payment options should you need those. However, for a lot of use cases, Stripe or PayPal is probably going to be more than enough for you. Now, when it comes to using any of these options, it's a semi-automated process. Let's take a look. If we're choosing Stripe as our option to take payments on this particular website, we'll choose Setup. That will then install the WooCommerce add-on for the Stripe payment option. Once that's installed, it'll go ahead and allow you to connect to your Stripe account. So you can see, we can either insert manually and enter the Stripe API details, or we can just click on Connect. So we choose Connect first of all, and now we can connect this through. So say, sign in with your Stripe account to connect. That's going to take us through and ask us to sign in with our relevant details, and then confirm that we're happy to use this as our payment processor. However, you can also manually enter the details, and it's going to be the same details. So we can say, we'll manually enter them. For this example though, I'm simply going to use the connect option and go through and set this up behind the scenes. And there we go. Once I've logged in, everything is now being set up and configured for me. I had to do absolutely nothing. So we say connect my Stripe account, and then we are pretty much done with the Stripe integration. As you can see, Stripe is now activated, and if I want to set up a second option with PayPal, for example, I can run through the same process. I can set up, let that connect, and do everything I need. If I want to enable cash on delivery, I can just simply select that, and that now becomes available. Now, the nice thing with cash on delivery is if you want to quickly just test out how your entire checkout process works without having to deal with taking online payments and refunding and using a sandbox setup with Stripe or PayPal, just use the cash on delivery. You can just disable it afterwards once you've configured and made sure everything all works the way you want. Okay, so that's now our payment processing set up through Stripe. Now, before we can move on to the more fun design type stuff, we need to have a couple of products in our store. So I'll show you how you can add a simple product, but if you want to see how to add some of the other main product types, I've got dedicated tutorials covering that. And as always, links are in the description for your ease. Now, the final thing I want to do is to add a first product in. So what I'm going to do is choose add my product, and you can see we can choose between 3 different options to add manually, import, or migrate. Now, I'm going to start off by manually showing you how to create a product, but then later on I will import some products so we've got more products on the store without me having to bore you going through the process of actually adding them. So let's say we're going to add this manually. This takes us into the add new product, and we'll get a simple little wizard that'll take us through some of the basics, but I'm going to ignore that for now, and I'm going to show you how this all works. Now, at first, this can seem kind of daunting how much information you have to put in, but the reality is it's not that complex. You've got your product name, the description, the type of product with a range of different sort of variables and things you can attach to it. And again, a lot of these are purely optional. You don't need to insert them. And then you've got product short description and the product gallery, product image, product tags, and the product categories. So let's create our first simple product first of all. So we're going to call this picture frame. We're going to drop in a description. So I've just copied some basic lorem ipsum text, and I'll just put that in 2 times. Let's go through and just set up the categories, and we'll come back to the product data in a moment because that's where probably the most complex aspect of working with products comes into play. Okay, so let's add a category, and we're just going to call this accessories, and we'll just say add new category. So that's now been associated with this particular product, and if you want to add this to multiple different product categories, you can do that by simply checking all the boxes it associates with. Product tags, this is just another way of organizing things. You don't have to use these, but you can do if you want to. We could say oak, for example, would be a tag. Frame could be a tag. Could be lots of different things. We'll just add those in. You can see oak and frame, so we can now tag that. Product image, we'll come back to that in a moment. And the product gallery is basically just additional images that you can optionally add to a product. Let's just say we also want to drop in a product short description, and when you see the way the page is laid out, you'll see where these various different elements come into play. Okay, so let's take a look at the product data section. This is where, like I say, most of the confusion comes when it comes to working with WooCommerce products. I also created separate tutorials on how each of these different kinds of products work, and again, I will link to those in the description below so I don't bore you with tons and tons of info in this particular video. However, let's just take a look to start off with. We've got product data, and we can choose between 4 different product types. Simple product, where there's no real variations, in other words, no different colors, different sort of styles, things like that, different sizes. So for example, where we're dealing with this picture frame, it might only come in one size, at which point a simple product is perfectly fine. Grouped products allows you to group multiple different products together. External and affiliate products, if you're dealing with creating a site for an affiliate product site, so for example, you could be selling products that are on Amazon, you can put their links into here and it links it up to create products on your site, but the actual purchase option is on a different site where you're an affiliate. And then you've got a variable product, and a variable product is a product that can have different variations associated with it. So again, going back to that, you could have a t-shirt, for example, that could be in green, red, and blue. It could be in sizes small, medium, and large. And then you've got lots of variations. A blue small, a blue medium, a blue large, a red, blue. You kind of get the picture. We're going to keep this simple though with a simple product. You then have options for virtual and downloadable. Now we're not dealing with downloadable products, but let's just say you were selling digital products. You'd select this to be downloadable. You could also be selling things that could be like vouchers. You could have a voucher, gift voucher on your site. You could set that up as a virtual product. In other words, it doesn't require any form of shipping. It's just virtual. People purchase it and have immediate access to it. Okay, so let's take a look at these different options underneath and the general and so on. So you've got your regular price and your sale price. Now your regular price is what you would sell it for, the retail price. And if you want to apply a sale discount to it, then you can do that here. So let's just say this frame was $19.99, but we're going to do it for $15.99. So what will happen then is when you see the product displayed on the site, it'll show the original price and it'll show the sale price underneath. And if someone purchases it, that will be the sale price. You can also schedule these sale prices, so you might only want this to run for a certain period of time, a special offer, an introduction offer, or something like that. Well, you can easily just add in the dates that this is applicable to and from. And then that price will disappear once it falls outside of those sale price dates. For us, they cancel that, and we're just going to remove that sale price and leave it at $19.99. Then we've got things like tax status and tax class. Is this item a taxable product? For example, if you're dealing with foodstuffs, a lot of those in the UK are not taxable. They're VAT exempt, at which point you could set that to be no tax. However, you can set it between taxable, shipping only, and none. So in other words, shipping only is you only pay tax on the shipping. Taxable means it's a taxable product. None, as its name would suggest, no tax applied. Then you can choose the different tax classes. So standard, reduced rate, and zero rate. Okay, so we're going to set this to be a taxable product at standard. And again, you've got help options to show you exactly what any of these different options actually mean if you're confused or just need some clarification. Now, the inventory option can be very useful if you want to apply stock management. If you do, you can drop in a SKU code, you can manage stock by enabling that, and then you can say the quantity you have. Do you want to allow things like back orders? In other words, if something's out of stock, can people still order it? And when are you going to get to the low stock warning? And are these sold individually? So enable this to only allow people to buy single items in an order. We're going to say we don't want to worry about stock management, but if you do, you can just drop all and fill the details out inside there. Next up is our shipping option. Now we can set up and use shipping in various different ways. We can set it up as a flat rate, which is what we currently have, or you can set it up to be weight and size based. So if you're working on that kind of provision, then you can drop in the weight and the dimensions of the particular product. We're not going to be using that for this example, so we're just going to choose the shipping class, currently set to no shipping class, and we're going to set that to our flat rate option. Linked products. Now this is where you have upsells and cross-sells, and you can, if you want to, manually insert products into here, and you can simply start typing and it'll show any products that you have with that name. However, it will automatically do that for you, but if you want more control, you can do just that. Attributes is where we can apply custom variations, so different attributes we might want to apply to a particular product. And then we've got advanced and get more options if you want to purchase any of these additional options. However, we've done everything we need to create our first product. Let's just drop in an image now. So we'll say we want to set the image for this, and I'm going to quickly just choose and upload an image. So we'll drag this option in and we'll set the alt tag to that. So we'll just say oak frame, and we'll just say set product image. So there's our product image. If we wanted to add extra product images into the gallery, we could do just that. But we've done enough now to get everything up and running. So we'll save this product, and we've now created our first product. Let's take a quick look at this. Now, obviously, there's no design associated with this, so it's going to look a little bit rubbish. But you can see there's our picture frame. There's our details and description. We can buy this or add it to the basket. There's our description, reviews if we've got that enabled, all those kinds of useful options. Now, if you'd like to check out more about creating different kinds of products with variations and all those kinds of things, check out the videos in the description below so you can get a real good understanding of how this all works with WooCommerce. Now for ease, I've already gone ahead and repeated what I've just shown you to create a range of different products that we can apply to the store, as well as a couple of extra categories. You'll also notice that we have this little star icon. That just sets a particular product as a featured product. And we can use that status, that featured status, later on if we wanted to. When we create customized pages, we can filter those products that are only featured products. So that's quite useful if you want to use it. With that being said, we've got some products in. Let's get on to the fun stuff now and start taking a look at how we can design our site and start to make it look super cool. Now we've ticked off the majority of our items in the to-do list, we can move on to the more fun stuff, starting by installing the theme we'll be using for this particular tutorial. To do that, we're going to head over to Appearance and into Themes. And from there, we can pick a theme. You can see all the themes you currently have installed, and you can see because we installed WooCommerce, it's by default installed the storefront theme, which is perfectly fine. We're going to ignore that anyway. So what we're going to do is click Add New, and we're just going to simply do a search for Blocksy. Now, Blocksy is an awesome free theme, and that's what we're going to use today, is the free version of it. And the reason we're choosing Blocksy is because A, it has great looking style. The Customiser, where we're going to do most of our work, is going to be really simple, really well organized. It also has a built-in header and footer builder, so we can customize those elements along with tons and tons of other elements. So just using this theme, you could create something truly unique. Now, that's what I've done in this particular tutorial, but you can take this as far as you want to go with it. So once we've downloaded it, we just simply activate it and we have the theme installed, and we might need to install a couple of other extra bits. So first of all, we need to install the Blocksy companion, and this opens up some extra features to us with Blocksy. Once you've chosen to install that, you're then given this option to be kept up to date with what's going on through the freemium sort of service. Up to you if you want to allow this. Because it's a demo site, I'm simply going to skip this step. Once that's done, that'll take us over then into Blocksy, and we can see some of the things that we can do. We can take a look at the options we have. We can jump directly to those options, or we can take a look at the starter sites. So if you wanted to get up and run in double quick time, you could use one of these as a great starting point. There's extensions which we can enable. And as you can see, the free version of Blocksy ships with 5 currently free extension sets, which are affiliate marketing, cookie consent, MailChimp, trending, and widgets, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate the widgets because this can be pretty useful. But we're going to leave everything else as it is for now. If you want to update and choose any of these options, by all means do. But for what we're going to cover in today's video, we don't need them. Useful plugins then is basically third-party plugins you might find useful to actually install. Now, the nice thing is, one of the things that I want to install to get more out of creating our designs is the Stackable Gutenberg blocks, because we're going to be using Gutenberg to design our pages that fall outside what you do with Blocksy. So we're going to choose to install the Stackable Gutenberg blocks right now. So we'll choose to install those, but you can see there's extra options here as well. If you wanted to use a page builder like the free version of Elementor or Brizy, you could do that. I'm going to activate the stackable options, and then we'll have that plugin installed alongside Blocksy. As we'll be using Gutenberg to build the main pages of our new site, we can make our lives that much easier by leveraging the ease and extra features provided by a couple more free tools. So let's take a look at those next. To do that, we're going to head over to Plugins and choose Add New. First plugin we're going to choose is one called Block Navigation. This just makes the whole process of navigating around the various different components of your page with Gutenberg way easier. So we'll install that and activate it. Next up, we're going to add another new one, and this time we're going to do a search for Themify WooCommerce product filters. There we go. So this currently has 20,000 activations and gives us a great free way of being able to add filters to our site to make the site user's experience way nicer. Activate that one, and then we've finished for this part. There are some extra plugins we're going to take a look at adding later on, but for now, we've got everything in place. So let's head back over now into the plugin section and make sure that everything is currently activated. And there we go. So everything is now active, ready for us to start building. The Blocksy theme has several features to make designing and styling our site much easier. The first one we'll be looking at is setting up the global colors we'll be using to keep the brand consistency throughout the entire design phase. Now, one of those areas that makes dealing with building a website much more professional looking is making sure you've got your color palette set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a primary color that's going to be the key color for this particular website, and we're going to use this website here, which is totally free, that allows us to get really good looking complementary colors so we can make sure everything looks super pro. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in the code for the base color that I want to use, and we're going to hit update. This will now give us a range of different colors. So first of all, we've got the grays, which have slight tints inside them to the color, a little nod to this base orangey kind of color. Then you've got your reds, oranges, yellows, limes, greens, teals, and so on, right the way through the color spectrum. This is a really great way of being able to get complementary colors right from the get-go. So you can see we've got these grays and so on. So now what we can do is we can transition the colors that we want to use over to our global color palette that we're going to use inside the Blocksy theme. Okay, so with my base color in place, I want to choose primarily 4 more colors we're going to work with. We're going to have a pale gray, a mid gray, and an accent color. This site is pretty much monochromatic apart from this base color, so I don't really need to have tons of options. And obviously, fewer colors means a more consistent color palette. But this isn't all about design theory. This is just about tools to help you get the job done. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've just grabbed these hex codes for the colors that I want to use. And then I basically just put these onto a notepad document, and there's all my colors. So now I'm ready to transition those over into the color palette as part of Blocksy. Now to access these global colors and set everything up, all we need to do is go into the option for appearance and customize, and that's going to open up the customizer, and then all the options for Blocksy are going to be inside here. So this is where we're going to do a big chunk of the design side of things, and then we'll focus on the home page separately. So as you can see, this is going to give us the basic overview of a particular page. In this case, it's the first page of our website. So before we do anything else on here, I'm going to flick this over to the dark mode because I think it just looks a little easier on the eyes. And then we can come into the colors option, and inside there, you can see we have color palettes and global colors. So you can choose any of these predefined color palettes if you want to, and you can see that changes the colors below. But you can also directly change these colors yourself. So you can see we've got the base font color, link colors, heading colors, and text selection colors. We can also set a background color for the website should we want to as well. So to change any of these colors, all you need to do is click on the color chip, and then you can set your values inside here. So you can see there's the hexadecimal code, but if you wanted to use other values, you can do that by just choosing this little drop down, and that will flick through the range of different options we have. You can see there's our global colors at the top. We can change any of those colors. We can select from this just color selector, and we can also adjust the transparency of any of these colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer over this color that I'm going to use for the first part, which is going to be the darker gray, which we're going to use for our text, our main text color. And you can see that now updates the color on there and gives us our base color. So I can now repeat the same process for all of the other colors until we get our full color palette in there. And there we go. There's our color palette tweaked, and there's our global colors all tweaked. So now we've set up the basic colors for our entire site. We can reference those now for anything we want to do inside the Blocksy editor. Now our colors are all in place, let's focus on making our typography look great too. So we're going to come back out and we're going to choose the typography option. And again, Blocksy makes it really easy to set up your global typography. Now it's worth bearing in mind that if you are not good at choosing font pairs, and I would generally say limit yourself to 2 at a push 3, you can use a great site called FontPair, and this will give you some really good examples of fonts you can pair together. Now most of these, if not all of these, are going to be the free Google fonts, so you should have access to these in pretty much any modern WordPress theme. So you can see there's a range of different options we can choose from, and you can effectively go through and find ones that you like. You can filter things down based upon sans serif and serif. So you can go through and you can find pairings that you think work really well for what you want to set up within your site. For me, I'm going to set everything to be Montserrat. So what I'm going to do is we choose the base font. We're going to click on there and we're going to just search for Montserrat. Once I find that, I'm going to choose it, and that will now flow through all of the different sections unless we change them manually. So your base font is basically, as it says, it's the base of all of the fonts you're going to use, all the styling you're going to use. Then you've got the size. So you can see that's set to 17 pixels, but we're going to set that to be 16 for this example. So a base of 16 pixels. And we can set the font weight if we want to as well. So I'm going to set this to be light and 300. So that's my base values. So now I can go through and set the various different values up for my headings. So if I wanted to use a different font here as part of one of these font pairs we just talked about, I can simply just choose to select a different font family. However, if I don't change anything, I leave it to default, it will inherit the base font. So we can leave that as it is. So now we'll use Montserrat for all of these options. All I need to do is change the size, and if I want to change the weight of any of these, I can do that here as well. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've gone through now, set everything up, and there's all the fonts configured, ready to go. So that's that side of things done. We're now ready to move on to starting to build the header and footer. So we'll set those up next. Blocksy has some really powerful tools to help us create great looking, fully functional, and easy to use headers and footers for our entire site. So let's get stuck in and build those next. And one of the key reasons why I've chosen the Blocksy theme to work with today is because it makes creating, styling, and managing your headers and footers an incredibly easy thing to do. And they are a key integral part to your entire site. So we need to make sure that they operate the way they should do, they look good, and they're flexible across multiple devices. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way, let's take a look at starting with our header section. So all we need to do is choose header from the general options, and then what we get is we get this header builder section. Now this is broken down into 3 different sections. At the moment, only the middle or main row is currently active. If we take a look at the top of the screen, you'll see the logos to the left, we've got our navigation to the right hand side, and you can see it says main row in the top right left hand corner. Now this is something you'll see throughout working with Blocksy, is the fact that you can easily come over and choose to edit various different sections by clicking on these little blue boxes that pop up in the top left corners. You can also come over various different widgets, and you'll see you get this little teardrop pop out of the side. You can click on that and that'll take you straight through to that relevant set of options. Same goes if we come over now to, for example, the navigation. We can click on there. Now there's all our menu options. And finally, the same goes for the search option. So if we click on there, that'll open up all the search options, the general, and also the design tab. So while we're in this section, let's just disable the searching for posts and pages and just restrict this to working with products. So that means we're only going to search our store. Okay, so once we've seen how that works, let's take a look at setting things up down the bottom. Inside each row that's active, you also get widgets. You can see on the left-hand side, there's our logo, on the right, our menu and our search, which is reflected in the preview in the Customiser. We can select the row, and we can then configure the general settings for this and also any of the design options. Or we can select one of the widgets, and we have, again, the general option with the various different controls for that particular widget, and the design option, which is picking up for our styling and so on. So let's take a look first of all. Now I'm got a logo to put in here at the moment, so don't worry too much about that. But let's take a look at the menu option. We jump over to that side. We now have some options on what we want to sort of set the menu up like. We have some predefined styles, which is already pretty cool. But you can also come in and you can fine tune the different design aesthetics as well. So we can switch between this type 1, which is what you can currently see, which just highlights the actual letters or words of the navigation. We can choose this option, which gives us an underline effect under each of those particular options. This one will give us a background color. And finally, we have this option, which gives us an animated top and bottom line. I'm going to stick to the type 1 because for this example, I really want to keep this minimal and clean for this particular design. However, pick and choose whatever you want for your design. For our example, we want to keep this really clean and simple. I don't want the search on the main row, so I'm going to just drag that up above. We're going to put it up into the top right hand corner of the top row. We're just going to keep the main section to have the logo and the menu. Now we can, if we want to, configure all the options inside here. So we select our main row, for example. We can then come in and we can set any values we want. Now at the moment this is a little too large, so I'm going to set this to 100 pixels height, and again you can see this reflects immediately in the design. We can switch this between default and full width, but we're going to leave it as it is. We're going to hop over to the design option, and inside here we can make sure that everything is configured the way that we want. Now at the moment we've got this set up as a standard header, but we want to set this as a transparent header, and I'm only going to set this on the home page to be the transparent header. And again, like I say, this is where the power of working with the Blocksy theme really comes in. We can do so many cool things. So to set a header to be transparent is easy. All we need to do is come back out of this, go into our headers and choose the global header. If you don't see this, you might be on elements. You just need to click on headers and then open up the global header. Inside there, we've got sticky functionality and transparent functionality. If we enable transparent functionality, you can see our heading looks a little bit rubbish at the moment because when you create a transparent header, it basically takes all the content of the pages and moves it up so it sits behind the navigation, the header, whatever it is you set up to be transparent. Once you want to set your conditions, you simply say add edit conditions, and then you can set up exactly where you want this to be included or excluded. So if you're coming from an elemental background where you work with the conditions to work with the templates and so on, this is going to be very familiar. You can set up display conditions and you can set up user conditions. For now though, we don't want to enable this while we're working on it because otherwise it looks a little bit weird because we see the content is actually sitting behind it, which is going to make it a bit more difficult to set everything up. So for now, we'll just disable that and go back. And once we've set up our home page and we set all the settings we want for the header, we can enable that a little later. Okay, so let's take a look now at just setting the styling for this section at the top. So first things first, let's just set up the top section, our top row. We're just going to select that section and we're going to add a couple more widgets in. So we're going to come back out of this, go to our elements, and the first thing we want to do is just drop in our socials in the top left hand side. You can see that just pulls in some placeholder ones. We can click, and again we can control exactly what goes in there, including the styling, the designs, and so on. So I'll come back to that in a moment. We also want to put in something else. We're going to come back out of this and we want to put in the account next to the search in the top corner. Again, we can click on account. At the moment, this is going to show the avatar for my account, but I can change that if I want to be just the label, or the label and the avatar. So we're going to set this just to be label. And we're now ready to actually set up the styling for this. So let's just select our top row again. So we're working with the actual container itself for this top row. And we're going to set the design aesthetic up and also the sizing. So at the moment, this is set to be 50 pixels high. I want to change that to be 35. I want it to be a little less intrusive. Come into the design section, and from here we can now choose our colors. So at the moment we're going to choose the background color. So we're just going to click the color chip and we're going to choose our global color. From there, we now can go ahead and we can style other things. So at the moment we're working with the actual top row container. Now we want to change the account colors. So we're going to click on account, open the widget up, switch into our design, and then we can change our content colors. So we're going to change our initial state to be white, and you can see that now updates the text, but the hover state is set to be the same color as the background, so it disappears. So we can change that to something different. So let's just click on that, and what we're going to do is we're going to set that to white, but we're going to drop the opacity down so we get a kind of semi-opaque color, so it'll go slightly different. And there we go. You can see there's a slight difference. Obviously you can set this any way you want. We're going to simply repeat the same thing now for the search. So I'm going to come into design, and from there we're going to set our icon color to be white, and we'll set our hover color to be white and drop the transparency down on that as well. So that'll work in exactly the same way. Finally, do the same thing then for our socials. So exactly the same routine, exactly the same process, and there we go. So that's our top row done. Let's move on now to the main row. So we're going to select that like we've done before. We've already set the height on there. Let's just jump over to the design side of things. Default state, we're going to set that to white to make sure it's picking up our global colors. We're not going to worry about any of these other options right now, but you can, if you want to, adjust things like top borders and bottom borders and things. We are, however, going to set drop shadow. So we're going to select on there, we're going to enable that, and we can now set the drop shadow color if we want to adjust it. But for now, we'll leave it as it is. That looks perfectly fine. So if we want to make any changes to things like the menu, we can do that. The same goes for the logo. So let's click on the menu and take a look inside there. We've already said that we're happy with the general design. We can adjust the spacing if we want to. And at the moment, this is set to 25. So let's just bring that down to about 20, just to close up the gap then for the header section for the navigation itself. Now we've gone ahead and done that. Let's just hop over the design section, and from there we can now tweak anything we want. I want to make the font just a little larger, so we're going to take that up to 13 pixels, and we're going to adjust the size of this to 500. So it isn't quite so imposing, we want a bit more subtlety to it. Then we can change any of the colors if we want to. For now, they look perfectly fine. We don't need to change any of the drop-down options. They're all going to work fine, but if we needed to, we can come in and change those retrospectively a little later on. Okay, so there's our main navigation set up and configured. Now let's go ahead and just set up the transparency options. So like we just seen, coming to our headers, back into our global headers, we'll enable the transparent functionality. We've already set the condition that's already set up with include and front page. That's perfectly fine. And now once we've done that, we've enabled it, you'll see a couple of things have happened. The background color's gone, the drop shadow's gone, the top section, we can't see any of that. The reason being is because once you enable the transparent header, you then have a set of extra options you can use. So let's come back out of this and let's go back into, first of all, our top row. Once we're inside there, we switch to design, you can see we now have extra options for transparent state. So now we need to set the transparent state options up inside there. So for this example, we're going to set this back to be the same color, and that'll pull that up at the top for us. You can see we can come back out of this now. We can jump into account, for example. If we come into design, you see, again, transparent state is in there. So we can set those to the colors we need. Quickly setting those up. Search is exactly the same. Come into the design inside there, and we can change the transparent state colors on that as well. There we go. Okay, so finally we need to adjust the header section. So let's select that, come into our design, and let's set up our transparent state. So at the moment that's set to this semi-transparent color. And that's perfectly fine. At the moment, you can't really see it because it's pretty much the same color as the background, but we've also lost the drop shadow. So let's add that back in. Transparent state, no drop shadow. Let's just change that and just enable it. And you can see that now shows us the drop shadow. So while we're not seeing it very well at the moment, when we go ahead and create the homepage after we've created the footer, all that will come up the way you expect it to, and it'll look a lot better than it does right now. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've set up the header. Now let's work on the footer. To do that, we simply come back out to the main part of the customizer, and this time we choose footer. And again, you see it operates in pretty much exactly the same way. We've got 3 rows, which we can enable or disable, a load of widgets down the left-hand side, and we can just build this up any way that we want to. So at the moment, we've got the bottom footer and that's showing the copyright information, which you can see over there, and that's fine. But let's choose the bottom row and let's just increase that to a couple more rows, or a couple more columns, I should say. Let's set that to be 3 columns, and you can see that now opens up some additional alignment options. For this example, we're going to just choose this option. And you see now the copyright is squished over into the left-hand side, and what we can do is we can put another menu into the right-hand side. So we can come back out of this, choose a footer menu option, and drag and drop that down into there. Now at the moment you see it's putting in this basic details, and that's perfectly fine, but we can adjust that and change the menu that we're using inside there, loads of different things. Let's adjust the copyright information right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly edit this just to make it a little bit smaller. So first of all, let's just change this text over to what I want in there. And you can see that shows us the preview in the main window itself. Now this is squished up a little bit, obviously, because we're looking at this in a smaller resolution, but it'll all look cool when it's finished, don't worry. Okay, so with that being said, let's just jump over to the design side of things and let's just tweak this. Let's just come in and set this to be 12 pixels, just to shrink that down, and that already looks a lot better. Next up, we need to come over to the footer menu. So we're going to select that option, and from there, we can now configure this as well. So we're going to do the same thing again on there, making sure that our font size is exactly the same. So into design, 12 is fine. Let's just change this as well to 500. So that's a little bit smaller and looks pretty cool. Color-wise, that's perfectly fine. Everything is looking the way we want on there. That's fine. So you can see there's our first part of our footer. We now want to create another part on top of this, which is where the middle row is going to go. So we'll select the middle row. You can see that's already set up to be 3 columns, but we want to change the alignment of this ever so slightly. We want to set it to be like this, because on the left-hand side, we're going to put in some information about us, and then we're going to put in 2 custom menus on the second sections. Let's go and grab our widgets, and we're going to do in this one, we're going to pull in widget area 1. Drag and drop that into there. Okay, so once we've done that, we can now click on that and we can add a widget in. And this gives us a load of different types of widgets we can pull in. What we want for this example is just the plain old text widget. So we're going to choose that option. And now we're just going to drop in the content we want to place in there. So I've already copied this. So we'll paste that in there, and we're going to give this a simple title. And there we go. So we've now created that widget, and you can see there it is. And if we want to edit that, we can simply click on it, and we have all the options available to edit it. You can also add extra widgets. You're not limited to just having 1 widget per sort of column, per section. You can add more in there if you want to. We're going to keep it really simple though and just add the 1 in. Okay, come back out of this, and this time we're going to add a second one in. So for this one, we're going to add in another widget. So again, same kind of thing, widget area 2, we'll drop that inside there. And while we're at it, we'll do widget area 3 as well. Now at the moment, we don't have the menus created for this. So we can say we're going to add a widget, and we can come in and we can choose to insert a relevant widget. For this example, the first one, we're going to say this is going to be the product category. So we can select that option. And because this is part of WooCommerce itself, we don't really have to do anything. We're going to disable the hierarchy, because you can see if we take a look under furnishings, we have some subsections. I don't want to show that right now, so we'll disable that. And what we're also going to do is we're going to say hide empty categories. So if there's any categories that are empty, we'll see nothing in there. And we're going to set a maximum depth of 2. So that means that if we have multiple levels of navigation with categories for products, we don't end up with tons and tons and tons of different sort of hierarchical information going down in there, which gets kind of a bit overwhelming. Okay, so that's that one done. Widget area 3, this is going to be a custom menu. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back out of this, add, and we're going to do a search for navigation menu. So let's just find that in the list of options that we have. Navigation menu. And at the moment, we don't have the menu we want to use inside here. This is going to be sort of the shop, the account, the basket, the checkout, and so on. So that's fine. We can come back and we can add that in a little later. If we want to, we can pop in any other information we need, but for now, we can leave that as it is. So we'll say done on there. So that placeholder is in place, ready for us to create the actual menu. So let's very quickly do that. Before we do, let's hit publish so we save all those changes. We're going to head back out of the customizer and we're going to go into appearance and menus. And inside there, we're just going to create a new menu. So we're going to add a new menu and we're going to call this account menu footer. And we're just going to create our menu. And now we can add any of the extra pages that we want in. So we're going to say my account, checkout, cart, and shop. Add those to our menu. And you can see, there they are. Now we're just going to quickly reorder those to make a little bit more sense. And there we go. We can now say save the menu. Now, while we're at it, let's create our main menu structure as well. So we're going to create a new menu. We're going to call this main menu. This is going to be header menu 1 and also our mobile menu. And we'll say create our menu from there. And this is where we can go ahead and add in the various different parts of our site, including the different categories for our shop and so on. So first of all, under pages, let's say view all. And we want to add in the home page, the cart, the checkout, and the shop. Add those in there. Reorder those as you see fit, so we want to put in that particular order. Once we've done that, we can now go ahead and add anything else in. Now, because we're building a shop, it's okay to have the default shop page, but it would also be good to have the various different sections. Example, the accessories, the different sections that we have as part of the different categories for our products. But you'll notice that there's nothing there to do that. If we open up categories, this is just the normal posts. To access those, all we need to do is come to the screen options in the top right. And from there, we can add any other options in. So we can say products if we want to. For this example, we don't. But we can say product categories. And that gives us the product categories to use. So we can close that back down. And we now have product categories. Expand that. And there's all our product categories. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom link. We're going to make this a null link so it doesn't actually go anywhere. So we're going to use this as the hash symbol. And we're going to drop the text in categories. We'll add that to our menu. And we're going to move that up just after our shop. Now we can come into our product categories and we can view all and we can select all of those and we can add those to our menu. Once we've done that, we can then organize things underneath that category section. So we'll drag these up to the relevant parts of the site, or navigation I should say. And once that's done, we'll have that as part of our site. So I'm going to quickly just add all these and I'll structure them the correct way. Now we don't want uncategorized, so we'll just remove that one from there. And we'll move the last one up. So if we take a look at the hierarchy on the left-hand side, we can see furnishings has accessories, rugs, throws, and wall hangings. So there's accessories, and we're just going to put those in the relevant location. And there we go. There's our navigation all set up for us. Okay, so we'll to make sure that's all configured correctly, and we'll say save menu, and then head back to the customizer and just add that final menu into our footer. So we're all done and dusted there. So widget area 3, open the navigation menu up. We're going to select and we want the account menu and we're going to just put this down as useful pages. There we go. We'll say done on that. And if we take a look, there's our footer all set up and configured. So that's that side of things all done. Now we have the beginning of our design starting to take shape. Let's turn our attention to the most important page on our entire new website, the home page. Now we need to make this enticing and easy to use. For this, we'll be using Gutenberg and the free Stackable Gutenberg Blocks plugin. Okay, so the header and footer's done. Let's publish this and let's take a look on the front end to see exactly where we are at the moment, just so we kind of get a good idea of what's going on. Let's close this down and let's open this up now and take a quick look. So let's visit our site and we can see this is where we are. So there's our header, there's our navigation, there's our footer all in place. If we come over to the categories, you can see there's our subsections of our products, going all the way down through the different levels. So everything is pretty much in place right now. We just need to go ahead and build the homepage. So this is where the fun really starts, where we can start to get a lot more creative. Let's head back over and come into our pages and add a new page, which we're going to call homepage. Okay, so let's go past all this and get started. Okay, so this is the homepage. And what we're going to do is just save the draft of this. Okay, so now we're going to be using Gutenberg alongside a couple of other free plugins we've already gone ahead and installed, so you can see exactly how all of this works. Now then, because we'll be using the Stackable, which is this free set of extra options we have with Gutenberg, as well as a range of quite cool starter sections, we have some extra options to go alongside that. If we come in and choose this S symbol at the top, which is the stackable settings, you can see inside there we have a global color palette. And you can see we can choose to add extra colors in if we want to. This means we can add the extra colors in that we've already set up and configured for part of our site inside Stackable, and then we can reference those where we need to. So let's go ahead and just add at least one color in, which is going to be our brand color. So we're going to change this to brand color, and we've added an extra color option in there. So now we can use that anywhere throughout our site. So you can continue to add extra colors in here if you want to. You see these ones that are locked, they're basically the global palette that is part of this particular install of Stackable. So you can add as many as you want on there, and you can reference those quite easily. So I'm going to quickly go ahead, add the extra colors in just to make sure I'm working with the same color palette inside Stackable as I am inside my theme. I can also go ahead if I want to and adjust all of the different heading sizes and the body text to make sure that they are all exactly the same as I have set up as part of my theme. And you can see we can change those directly inside here. We can adjust the weight, the size, all these normal things that we've seen already. So if we set the Montserrat as the family, you can see that changes that over. So again, I'm going to quickly go and replicate exactly the same settings inside here as I've got set up inside Blocksy. There we go. We've now set everything up. So the next thing I need to do is we're going to use one of the predefined templates for the header section, for the hero section, just to show you how you can use those. And then we'll take a look at how you can create things totally manually. So we're going to click on the design library at the top, and this will show us all the different options we have available. Now, a lot of these are paid for, but we're going to be just relying upon the free versions. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the option that I like, that think is in keeping to the design that I'm currently working with, and we're going to use that. So I'm going to quickly go through, and I believe it was this option. So we're going to select this, the capital call to action 2, and select that, and that will now download that and insert that into our design. And now we can configure and fine tune this any way that we want to make it exactly the way that we need it to look. So to access the settings now for this new section we've added in, we simply need to come up to this top little 3 dots and choose show more settings, and then on the right hand side we now have all the settings for this particular section. You can see we have layout, styles and advanced. So now we can go through, we can configure everything. So we go to layout, for example. First of all, we can switch between the basic layout and the plain layout. We're going to use the plain option in this example. You can see underneath there we've got some additional or optional designs. We can open the design library again and choose something different. We can filter these out based upon whether they're free, all of them, or premium. So if you wanted to change this to something else, for example, this option or this option, you can see all you need to do is basically click on it and change it. So we'll change it for this particular option. Head back over to the style section, and now we can start to configure each of the different elements. You can see we can adjust the alignment. This is going to adjust the alignment of the actual content that sits inside there. So first thing we want to do is change that content. At the moment, it doesn't really make any sense because it's not saying what we want. So we're just going to simply select all of this by double clicking and paste in the text that I want, which in this example is minimal by design. We're also going to change the button text. So we're going to click and we're going to change this to start browsing now. There we go. Now, we don't like this background color, also the background image, so we can change that as well. And you'll notice that when we click on various different elements, the options on the right-hand side will change accordingly. So at the moment, we're looking at the button. However, if we double click on the text, you can see that now takes us back to the title. So each of these different sort of sections, these predefined blocks, we have control over the various different elements. The general, as you can imagine, is the general side of this particular design. And then inside there, you have title, description, if you want to enable it, for example. And then inside each of these different sections, you have more options. So we can change the heading tag if you wanted to for this minimal by design, or change the typography, the size, all those kinds of things, including colors and so on. Before we do though, let's just change the background. And we do that simply by coming down to the block background. Expand that, and you can see this now gives us more options. We can change this image. We don't want that one. So I'm going to upload a higher resolution image now we're going to use as our main hero. So I'm going to upload that. There we go. We can give this an alt text if we want to, which you should do. So we're just going to call this hero. but obviously you'd be more descriptive, and we'll say select. You can see that now inserts that into the background. We can also change various different things. If we want to, we can add a background color instead of using this option, or we can apply overlays. We can adjust all these kinds of things. So we've got a background media tint. At the moment, this is set to 5, but we can adjust that. So we'll bump that up, and you can see that makes it darker now in the background. If we want to change that, we can change the color of this. We can change the position of this particular picture. We have what you kind of expect to have control-wise inside something like Elementor. So let's set this to center center. We'll set this to be no repeat. We'll set it to be cover, and we'll just leave the blend option as it is. Okay, so that's those side of things done. Now let's just change the background color to be white, just to give us that sort of nice minimal look. So that's how easy it is to change the background. Now we're going to come in and we're going to change some other things. So next up, we're going to select the text, and you can do this in multiple ways. You can select it there, or you can simply select the title option, and then we can just adjust this. So we're going to set this to heading 2. And now we're going to change the typography on there to be a little different because this is a feature heading. So we're going to change this, and we're going to set the value to 90. We're going to set the weight to be 100. I want this to be quite slim and minimal. Set it to uppercase just in case we'd inserted it in lowercase. And there's the first part of this done. Let's close that. Now we can just adjust the actual color. So we'll select this black color, and we now have minimal by design on there. So that looks quite cool, although I think I'm going to make this just a little dark. Let's go for 200. That looks a bit better. You can also adjust things based upon the device. So at the moment we look at the desktop. We can change this based upon desktop, tablet, and mobile. So we switch to tablet, for example. You can see this now shows us how it looks, and as you can see, the minimal by design looks really, really small. So let's adjust that typography. And let's just change the sizing on that to get a little bit larger. About 62 looks okay. And we can switch to mobile. And if we want to adjust that there, we can adjust it. 2 lines is perfectly fine. And let's make that a little heavier so it stands out. And we'll adjust the line spacing on there, or the line height, I should say, just so it ties things in a little nicer when we're coming to working with the mobile. So you can see it's really easy to deal with these kinds of things. We can easily switch back and forth between the different device sizes, and we can adjust most of the things you're used to with a page builder. Next on our list is let's deal with the button. So we'll choose the button option, and now we have all those controls inside there. We can choose between 4 basic different kinds of designs: your basic, your ghost, your plain, and your link. We're going to set this to basic for now, and we're going to set some colors. So we're going to set the background color to be this black color. That's fine. And we're going to set the text color to be white. I'm going to come down to the hover effect. If you want to change any hover effects to give it some kind of animation on there, you can do. However, you can leave that as you see fit. Going to come right the way down, and we're going to just say we want to set some options for the actual hover state. To do that, we just come into the hover colors, select that. You can see at the moment when we hover over it, nothing really happens. It goes a little lighter. Let's change that so the button color goes to our orangey kind of color, and let's change the text to its white. And there we go. So we've now created and set up our button. So that's that done. Now we need to just adjust the sizing on this, because at the moment it looks a little bit small and not that interesting. So to do that, we can simply come up into the advanced section. And now we have even more options again. So things like under general, you can see we can change the HTML tag that's been associated with this. So if you wanted to, you can set this to be sections, you can set it to headers, footers, set that to whatever you think is relevant to your particular design and whatever element you're working with. Now, if we come into the block height or the block spacing, we can now adjust things. So we're going to say the minimum block height, we're going to set this to be something like 900. We want this to be the feature on the home page. And there we go. And again, you can change this based upon the device. Let's just jump over to tablet, for example. And you can say you want your block height on there to be set to something, let's just say 600, for example. And then you can do exactly the same for your mobile devices. So again, let's just adjust that to make it a little bit more interesting. There we go. Switch back. You can adjust your content alignment. So you can set that to top, middle, or bottom. And you can adjust anything else you want on here as well. So let's have a little look what this looks like across our devices. Looks pretty good. So we can leave everything else. But if you want to adjust things like your paddings and your margins and things, you can do all of that inside here as well. So that's our hero section set up. Now let's take a look at saving this page and take a look at how this interacts with our transparent header. So let's just publish this page. And we'll say, yep, we want to publish it. We're not going to worry about taking a look at it here, because if you remember, we haven't set this to be the home page. So if we take a look at it, with the condition we've set up for the transparent header, we won't see it anyway. So what we need to do is just quickly come back out of this, and we're going to go to our settings and into reading. And from there, we can now set a custom home page. So we're going to choose a static page, set our home page to be home page, save our changes, and that's that done. So now if we come over to our test site and we refresh this home page, we can see where we are. And as you can see, we've got everything in place. However, it's still not working properly because we still need to make a couple of tweaks. First, you can see we've got our header section at the top and something's underneath there. That's the home page. That's the title of the page, which we don't want to display. So let's deal with that first, and then we'll deal with pushing everything up so it works the way we need it to. We're back into our home page, and all we need to do is come up to the top corner, and you can see there's the Blocksy page settings. We'll select that, and we have an option at the top that says page title. We can choose it, and currently it says inherit. And what that's going to do is that's going to inherit the settings that you set globally inside the customizer. For this example, let's just disable it from this particular section. Now, unfortunately with Gutenberg, it still leaves it in there, and that's just a quirk with Gutenberg itself, but it has been done. So let's just update that page, head back over to our test, and we'll refresh. And you can see that's now got rid of that. However, while our header section or our hero section has moved up, it's still not in the right position. So we need to deal with that next by applying a little bit of negative margin. So to come back into our design, come back into our hero section so we can access that easily by coming up to the outline at the top. And you can see we'll choose the call to action. So we'll make sure that's the item that's selected. And now we can come in to the settings for this for Stackable and choose our show more settings. If we come into advanced, this is where all our options for the block spacing come in. And now we can adjust this by applying some negative margin to the top. Now, if you remember, when we set up our main navigation block for our header, we set that to a value of 100. So let's start there. Let's set this to -100 to start off with. Let's give that a try to see if that works okay. And again, once we've done that, we'll just update our page, head back over, refresh, and there we go, all sorted. So we've now got our hero section in place, our transparent navigation is all set up. We're on our way to creating a nice looking site. Okay, so we're back into our homepage design. Let's take a look at adding the next sections in. Now, with the header section, the hero section, we wanted that to be full width, to take up the full width of our design, and that's perfectly fine, it looks great. But what we want to do now is we want to contain inside the sort of confines of the design the main content of this page. Otherwise it's going to look a little bit odd, especially when you go to a larger monitor. Now, to do that is really easy, and again, this is one of the things why Stackable is so useful. However, there's a lot of add-ons for Gutenberg that'll give you these sort of containers and different layout options that'll be all part of it. But like I say, we're going to be using Stackable for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up, we're going to click to add a block in. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see there's our design options. Now, you can see these are a different color to the rest of all the other icons, and these are the stackable icons. This is what's showing us this is stackable. So what we can do is we can add a container in. So we can add a container, and that just drops a container into our section. Now, if this is in the wrong place, this is where we can use the other plugin that we've added in, which is the block navigation. This will show us a hierarchy of our entire design. Now, while you might be thinking, well, that's exactly the same as what this outline offers us, and in certain respect, you would be right. However, we can't move anything around inside there. We have to use the really quite clunky way of moving things on the page itself. Whereas that's fine if you have a really simple design, but when it gets more complex, it's nice to have the ability to simply drag and drop things around inside a panel like this. And again, if you're coming from something like Elementor or Brizy, this is going to be something you probably become accustomed to. So we can easily just drag and reposition these inside the hierarchy really quickly. We can also get rid of things. So like with this paragraph at the top, we can click and we can say we want to remove that block. Really, really easy. Okay, so that's covering those things. Now let's take a look at how we start to create these different sections inside our container. First of all, let's just set the container up the way that we want. Let's choose that show more options, set this to be plain because we don't want that background, and that's that side of things pretty much done. Now we can start putting things inside this container. So let's kick things off by adding in a header. So we're going to come into add a new option, and we're going to just choose this advanced heading. Click to add that in, and you can see it's not in the right place. So we can deal with that in a couple of ways. We can drag it and position it inside there, but again, kind of becomes a bit clunky. This is why I just use this block navigator. Now I can just pull that up and insert it, indent it in, and now that's inside the container. It's as simple as that. Like I say, really, really easy. Okay, so now we've got this option inside here. Let's just change what's said on there. So we'll set that to be browse sections. And if we click to take a look at the settings for this particular widget, you'll see we can now do like we did before. So we've got subtitles. You can see subtitle for this block. Well, we don't want that. We're going to get rid of that. We want to put a top line inside there. Nah, that looks terrible. We're going to put a bottom line instead. That looks a lot better. And now we can go through and configure things. So I'm going to do that quickly so you don't have to watch me doing what you've already seen me doing in other sections. So there you go. There's our heading. Next thing we're going to add in is the option to display some extra information. This time we're going to use a feature called a card. So to do this, we're simply going to come back up like we've done before. We're going to do a search this time for card. And you can see there's the option. So we'll add that in there. And that puts in the placeholders. This looks very familiar. If you're coming from any other page builder, it looks very similar. What we're going to do is though, we're going to set this to be plain. And we're going to just choose a couple of options. So first of all, let's go into style, set this to be 3 columns. There we go. Already looks a lot better. And now we can just configure various different settings. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the things that I don't want. So we want the image, the title, we don't want the subtitle, we don't want the description, we do want the button. As you can see, there's lots of different options inside here. Let's come in now and add a couple of images in. So we're going to select the first, click on there, and we're going to choose the image that we want to use for this particular example. We'll select that one, click on the second one, select it, cancel. Select our next image, which is going to be this one. And finally, we'll choose our third image, which is going to be this one. So we'll select those 3 images. Now we can configure and tweak how this all looks. So first of all, let's come into the image option. And inside there, we can now start to change things. You can see it allows us to pick what image size we want to work with. So we can optimize this to get the best results that we want. We're going to change the image height though, because I don't want them to be square. I want them to be sort of more elongated. So we're going to set this up to, let's set this to a value of 500. That already looks a lot better. Come back out of this, go back into our general option, and we're going to just add in a bit of a border radius, somewhere around 8. And if you want to adjust the shadow, you can adjust the shadow on there as well. However, that's already looking considerably better. Next up, let's deal with the titles. So we're going to choose the title option. H4 is perfectly fine. We'll tweak the text on there. And we're just going to tweak this to be a little bit lighter weight. So we're going to say we want this to be 200. That looks a lot better. Actually, let's try 300. Yeah, that looks much better. If you want to change the color, you can change the title color. So we're going to make that just a little darker. You can adjust the size on there if you want, but 25 looks perfectly fine. So we're already looking pretty cool. Let's come to our spacing though, and let's just adjust this. So we can adjust the spacing around the image. We can adjust the spacing around the title, and we can adjust the spacing around the button. So let's just reset those values. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add in a little bit of spacing around the image itself. So we're going to set this to a value of 16. That gives us a bit more breathing space underneath. We're going to set the title to be -5, and you'll see why in a moment, because we're going to get rid of the way the button looks. We don't want this sort of blue outline button. We want them to be pretty much not looking like a button at all. So let's choose the button option, and now we can tweak that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to be a plain link, and you see that gets rid of the kind of button look to it. Once we've done that, we can now set some other things up. We can choose the color, which we're going to go for our accent color. We're going to set up the font styling on there as well. So we're going to change the typography, and we're going to make this a little bit more bold. So let's try something like 600. Actually, that's probably a bit too heavy. Let's try 500. That looks pretty good. With that being done, we can now go ahead and configure anything else we want. So what I'm going to do quickly now is I'm going to change the titles for these, and I'm going to change the text for the buttons. Then we'll take a look at how we link things. Okay, so we've added the titles in. We've also added and changed the shop now. So to make these into links is very, very easy. If we hop over into our test site, we can see we've got the various different sections on here. So things like soft furnishings and those kinds of things. So what we can do is we can simply come up and we can take a link from there. So the first one we've got is wall hangings. So we're going to come into categories. We're going to come down and choose wall hangings. And once we've done that, we're simply going to copy the link to that. So we'll select it. You can't see this, unfortunately, this is off camera, but we're just copying the URL. We come back and we're going to click, and we're just going to drop that inside there, and we'll hit the this return, and we've now created a link. So I'm going to go ahead, apply that to the rest of these, and then we've done with this first section. Okay, so they're all now linked up, and that's the first block already created. Let's update this now so we can commit our changes to make sure everything's looking okay. And let's quickly hop back over to our test page, come back to our home page, and let's take a look. So there we now have our sections in this. So it's already starting to look like a much more pro design, a lot more like a shop, ready for us to start buying things. Okay, so we're going to do another section inside here. So we're going to come into this, and we're going to do the same thing again. Let's just add another card in this time. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to come back in. We're going to do a search for card. We'll add that in. Okay, so that now sits underneath our first section. So I'm going to go through quickly, and I'm going to do exactly the same as I've just shown you in the first set of options to create a interesting design where we have a 3 and then a 2 section, just to make it a bit more visually interesting. So I'm going to quickly do that, link everything up, change all the text, and then we'll be back. Okay, so there's our design pretty much done. Now before we go any further, just want to check something to make sure everything has gone into place like it should do. Because sometimes you find with Gutenberg, even though you think you're inserting something in the right place, it doesn't always go where you expect. So again, let's just jump back over to our block navigation, and you can see our card is sitting outside our container. You can tell by this little line. So what we need to do is just simply drag that inside, and now that closes any spacing problems we may have up and puts everything the way we need it to. So let's just save this, we'll update it, hop over to our site, come to our home page, and let's take a little look at where we are right now. So I think we're looking pretty good. We've got our browse sections in. We can go through and we can shop in any of those sections. Some nice images, a nice layout, all looking pretty sweet. Okay, things are really starting to come together now, but there are still a few little tweaks I want to address. So let's hop back into the WordPress Customiser and I'll deal with those next. Now, while our design is already starting to take shape, there's a couple of little things that I want to tweak inside the Customiser to get it where I want it to be. Now, these are totally optional if you're following along with me, but it's a good indication of some of the things you can do to tweak your design and make it a little bit more unique. So inside the Customiser, we're going to head over into the general options and into the general section. However, what I want to sort of set up right now is I want to enable the scroll to top option, which basically gives us this little arrow in the bottom corner, which we can click to take us back to the top of the page. Great for longer pages. I also want to choose the option for a website frame. We'll choose that. You can see that now puts like an outline around the edge of our page. Now I can click the little fly out arrow, and that gives me more options inside there. So first thing I want to do is change the color. I'm going to set this to be white and test that out. And we're going to adjust this from 10 pixels, for this example, to 30. See what that looks like. Actually, I quite like the look of that. That looks pretty cool. So we're going to go with that option, but we've now just added a couple of extra little things in. Something else I want to do is come back out of this, right the way back down until we get to our header section. I want to show the cart, because at the moment we don't know if anything is in the cart when someone's looking to buy it. So we're going to just add that option in. So we're going to drag that, we're going to place that before the search option. We'll select it, and then we can just fine tune and configure anything that we want on here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to select it, and we're going to simply just change the design and the options to go with it. You can do things like tweak the icon that's going to be used. So you can switch those between 3 different options, adjust the size of it, cart total visibility based upon different designs, cart draw, and so on. And you can't see the cart draw because we currently have nothing in there, but it basically just gives you a sort of pop-out that shows you what's inside your cart, and also shows you your checkout and your view your cart options. Now you can see at the moment we still have that same problem. We can't see it, so let's hop over to the design side of things, and let's just tweak this. So default state is going to be white. Hover state is also going to be white. We can adjust the transparent state if we want to on there, but we'll leave that as it is. And now you can see, we can see it a lot better. So that looks pretty cool. I want to come back to general though, and I want to disable the icon badge because I don't want it to pop up and say how many different items we've got in our basket. Let's open the account option up again and just make sure that everything is set up the way we need inside there as well. So what we need to do is we've made sure the colors are all okay, but still not showing up. And the reason for that is because we don't have any link set up. So what we need to do is change this over. We can set the avatar if we want to, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. But what we need to do is the action. We want that to go to the account page. So at the moment it's saying it's got the profile page, but we want to go to the account because that makes a lot more sense. To do that, we can simply choose the link to go to it. And to get that, all we need to do is just open this up, choose custom page, and then we're just going to type in /my-account, / And unless you've changed the default page links for anything to do with WooCommerce, that will work perfectly fine. If you have, you're going to need to make sure you put the right one inside there. Okay, so that's that side of things all done. Let's simply make sure we publish that, and then we can go and just make sure that everything is working as we expect. And we can see there's our spacing around the outside edge. There's all the things that we wanted set up and all in place. So pretty cool. We're in the right ballpark now. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at styling the key WooCommerce pages, because if we go through and take a look at, for example, our shop, we can see that it's looking okay, but we are missing a few things on this design, including things like filtering and so on. So we're going to deal with those things over the next couple of sections. Now our design is really starting to look pretty sleek now, so let's turn our attention to the WooCommerce pages and give them some attention and get those to follow suit with the rest of our current design. So while we're inside the Customiser, let's hop over to the shop section and we can start to make sure that everything is looking the way we like. So this is where we are right now. You can see we've got basically a default kind of look with some styling applied to it, and everything looks pretty cool. However, we can still work on this and make even more of it. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to style this to make sure that everything is in keeping with the look that we currently have. So let's just jump over now into the WooCommerce settings and take a look at what we can do inside there. You can see this is broken down into 4 distinct sections. General, which is kind of going to give you some really basic options to set up your general, your design. And again, we have our color options inside there, so we can fine tune and tweak these should we need to. We come back out of there and we take a look at product archive, for example, which is currently what we're looking at. We can now choose more options again. Do we want to display the page title? You can see this is where it says shop at the top. We can disable that completely, and that gives us a much cleaner look. However, if you want to keep that inside there, you'll notice we get the pop-out arrow on the right. We can click and we can choose some different designs inside there, so you can still fine-tune and tweak. So if you like to have the breadcrumbs on there, especially if you're dealing with a bigger shop, this can be very useful. So you can easily enable and disable the various different features. So you might say, we don't want the title, we don't want the description, we just want the breadcrumbs. Well, you can do that by simply enabling and disabling the features you want. And again, you have full control over styling, position, what they look like on the different types of devices, all those kinds of good things. Now, because our shop is quite small, quite minimal, I'm not going to worry too much about these side of things. So I'm actually going to disable the page title feature. This just cleans the design up a little bit. We can then control the number of rows and columns. And again, we have control over those on desktop, tablets, and mobiles. So for this example, we're going to set this to 3 for now for the columns. The key reason for this is because we're going to insert a right-hand column, and inside there we're going to put some product filters later on. This is something we will take in a separate section, but we are going to add that in there. It just allows the users of our site to be able to filter through based upon different criteria, price, categories, those kinds of useful things. So we're going to do that inside there. Then you've got your card options, and this allows you to control how each element works on top of the actual types of displays. So currently we're viewing this one with the large buttons, which isn't really in keeping to the style that we have on the homepage where we removed the actual physical buttons. So we're going to choose this type 2 layout option, and this kind of just streamlines things, adds a little bit of a subtle drop shadow, and in my opinion makes this look a little bit more in keeping with the design aesthetic we've been working with. Okay, so let's go to the card options and we can fine tune this further if we want to. You can see we can choose the image ratio. Now we're going to leave this as it is, that's perfectly fine. However, if you want to change the size, you can do that. You can change the aspect ratio, you can change whether these are portrait or landscape. As I've already chosen this aspect ratio for the images and that's what we're viewing, I don't need to change anything. But you can do inside here, you can even set up complete custom options if you want to. We also have the image size option, which allows us to control the width of this particular image. So let's just say we want to get slightly better quality, but obviously that comes with a slight increase in file size. You can see we could increase that on there and we'll get a clearer image. It'll resize those and we get a slightly better image. Again, this is the balancing act between getting a fast loading site and a good looking image. So you need to make sure you can balance those. Then we can choose whether we want various different options, things like star rating, sale badge, whether we want to include product categories, for example, we can do that side of things and it tells us what categories these are in, which again, up to you. I'm going to disable those because we want that clean aesthetic. Hopping over the design side of things, we can then fine tune any of the other options inside here. Again, we've got all the font families. We can adjust all things inside there. So the title, I want to make a little bit lighter. So we're going to just set that to something like, let's try regular to start off with. That looks a little better. And if you want to increase the size, you can do that. But obviously, we're looking to make sure that everything is in keeping with the overall design aesthetic. So with that in place, if you want to adjust shadows, border radius, all those options are available to you. Like I say, Blocksy gives you tons of options to get great looking designs. Okay, so we've set most of what we want to do up on this particular section. Let's come back out of this now. And we're going to go back and just make sure that everything looks good on other devices. So let's open up the tablet, and 3 looks okay on there, but because we're going to put that column in on the right hand side, let's set that to 2. Hopping over to the mobile device, 1 is perfectly fine, and you can see it defaults to that anyway. So that's those things all done. So let's switch back, and we're going to enable the sidebar. So once we enable that, you can see that puts the sidebar on the right hand side. We now get extra options. Expand that out, we can choose between the left hand side or the right hand side. We're going to leave this set to the right hand side for this example, and we're going to create the sidebar a little later. We take a look at creating the filters. I just want to put the placeholder in there right now so it's all there set up for us. Okay, so that's basically what we want to do for this individual section. If we want to adjust the pagination, we can also insert that, different kinds of pagination and so on. Now, nothing shown at the moment because we are at the limit of all the products on this particular page. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to style, you can do that there. Let's take a look now at an individual product. So we're going to come back out of this section and we're going to hop into the single product section this time. And again, you see we have all those great options inside here. So we need to make a couple of little tweaks here, more to do with the color schemes than the layout, because I think the layout already looks pretty good. So what we're going to do is we need to change this title, because at the moment it's bold, doesn't look right. So we need to change that. I'm going to change that over to, let's try 300 on there. That looks pretty good. Next up, I want to change the color of the price. I want this to be in line with our normal color scheme. So we're going to choose our sort of orangey color. That looks pretty good. Buttons looking fine. The buy now option, well, we don't really have a huge amount of control over that, unfortunately. As we've seen before, we can control exactly what's going to display on here as well. So if you want to enable or disable or style any of these elements, you can do that inside here. So all those controls are available to you. But other than that, to be honest, this section looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with this. I could make some more tweaks if I wanted to, but I think everything is looking as we want. The other thing I would draw your attention to is the functionality options. Do you want to have a sticky summary, and do you want to have an Ajax add to cart? And the Ajax add to cart just basically means when you add a product, instead of going to the cart to see that product in there, it just pops up and gives you a message to say something's been added to your cart. This is something that kind of keeps the person on the page and is a purely optional thing whether you like that or not. Now, there is one thing that I do want to change. I don't like this zoom effect that you have as default in WooCommerce. We can get rid of that, hop back to general, scroll down until we get to the image section, and we can disable the image zoom if we want to. That gets rid of that. There we go. We now just have the image. If you want to use Lightbox, you can do that all inside there. So it's up to you how you want to do it, but for me, I just don't like that image zoom. Okay, so we're happy with this particular section. So we're going to come back out of this, and we're just going to take a look at the checkout page. Now, we don't have tons of control over the checkout page, but we can enable and disable some of those things that are not necessarily needed for every kind of website. So you can see company name of field. If you don't sell to businesses, or that's not even relevant, you can simply just make that hidden, or you can make it a required field if that's something you need. Same goes for things like address field 2. Let's just streamline our overall checkout process. Phone field, is it required? Up to you. And then you've got your privacy policy page and your terms and conditions pages. And do you want to display the coupon form? Well, yes, we want to display that. So what we've basically done is streamline our checkout section to remove some of those things that are not really needed when someone's looking to check out. So that's that side of things done. So what we're going to do now is hit publish on there. And we've pretty much covered off most of what I wanted to do for just tweaking the WooCommerce layout to bring it in line with our homepage and our overall styling.
Now, on a small site like ours, we can easily get away without the need to add any form of filtering. But as the site and product range grows, we need to have an easy and visual way to filter what we're selling. So let's handle that now.
To do that, we're going to be using Themify WooCommerce Product Filter. Again, another free plugin. So once that's installed, we need to go ahead and create our first set of filters. To do that, we're simply going to come over to Product Filters, and we're going to say Product Filters. And inside there, we're going to add a new one. So we say Add New, and we'll simply just call this Product Filters. Now you've got a load of options on how you want this to look, how you want to set things up, how you want it to operate, and all those kinds of things. Now I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail with this. I'm going to show you the basics, but most of it should be pretty self-explanatory. At the top, we've got the name or the title for this particular group of filters. You can then choose whether you want a horizontal or vertical layout. You can then choose all the different options. So I'm just going to quickly go through and set up what I need for this. Most of it we're going to leave as default anyway. Okay, so all these options are perfectly fine. Standard pagination is fine, and we're going to say no reset button because it's all done through Ajax in this example, so we don't need to worry. Then you've got the options for your logical relationship. This is something that's worth taking note of. You can choose and or. And basically what this does is when you choose multiple filters, it says, is it going to be this filter and this filter and this filter and this filter? So it'll stack them all on top of each other. Or is it going to be this filter or this filter? So it has to match either of those criteria, not all of those criteria. Hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, I would recommend setting up a couple of filters and experimenting with that to just kind of get your head around how it all works. Your results page template. Show results on the same page, or do you want to jump to a different page? Because we're using Ajax, we want this to be seamless. We're going to leave this set to be on the same page. And then if you want to customize the message, if nothing is going to show up for all the filters that people use, you can drop your own custom message inside there. So all of those things are really, really simple and self-explanatory. However, where the power of this comes in is where we can choose what of our different sections we want to use to filter. So we can filter against category, color, whether it's in stock, on sale, price, and so on. So I'm going to show you just a couple of these, but I would, again, highly recommend you check these out and experiment with them to see how they work the way you want. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drop in a category. So we'll drag and drop that underneath, and now we get a set of options specific to our category filter. So what we're going to do, first of all, is put a title in for this. So we're going to say this is product category, and then we can choose what we want to do. So we're going to hide the default title field if we want to, or make that enabled. Again, entirely up to you. I would generally recommend to leave that visible, otherwise people won't necessarily know what this section is for. Do you want to show the product counts? Now, personally, I don't want to use that because, if I'm honest, it just adds extra calls to the database back and forth to the server, and I don't think you really need it. So we're going to take that off. Show category in hierarchy. Now, if you are using parent and child categories, in other words, you've got clothing, and inside clothing you might have children's clothing, adult clothing, ladies' clothing, men's clothing, then it makes sense to show the hierarchy. However, if you don't use that or you don't want to have it set up like that, you can disable it if you want to. Do you then want to include those children? So again, do you want to just include the parent, or do you want to include those sub or child sections as well, or categories? We're going to say yes, we want to leave that on there, and we're going to say show category hierarchy. Then you can just choose how you want to display this as. We're going to leave it set to checkbox, and again, we've got that logic operator inside there, and we can choose the order that we want to display things in, custom, name, count, ID, and so on. Choose whether you want this horizontal, vertical, or in columns. We're going to leave this set at vertical. And if you want to display category icons and colors and things like that, you can do all those things. So we're going to leave that as it is. We've set that up the way that we want. The next one we're going to add in there now is a price option. So we're going to drag that option underneath our category. And again, we've now got a set of different options that relate to this particular filter type. So we're just going to put in there price, and we can choose between a slider and a range. We're going to leave this set as a slider, and then if you want to set a step, you can do inside there. So this depends upon how big a range you're using when it comes to the filter. So for example, if you're dealing with products that range from like £10 to £100, a step of 1 is fine. However, if you're dealing with things that range from 10,000 to a million, then you don't really want to go up in ones. You might want to go up in thousands, tens of thousands, those kinds of things. And that's what the step is there for. Finally, we're just going to add in an on sale checkbox that allows people to sort of filter and see what items are on sale. So we're going to drag that into place. We're just going to put in there on sale, and that's pretty much all we're going to do. It's just a simple checkbox, nothing more than that. So no real options for that. So we've now created our first filter set. We can save this, and we are done. We've created it. Now we just need to apply this into our design, into that column on the right hand side. To do that is really easy. We're just going to use one of the built-in WordPress options. I'm going to head over to our appearance and into widgets. And inside there, we've got a WooCommerce sidebar option. Expand that, and you see there's no widgets currently in there. However, we can use the different options on the left-hand side and insert what we want in there. So we're going to say the themify product filter. We're going to grab that and just insert that into our WooCommerce sidebar. We want to drop a title inside there. We can do that Finally, we just choose where we want to grab those filters from. Now, this is the product filters, which is the only one we've created, so that's perfectly fine. Hit save on there, and we've now set that up. So now if we come back over to what we had to start off with, this is where we were with the first set of options. Now if we refresh this page, we'll see our refresh design with our product filters in place, our products, everything set up the way that we wanted it to, all done through Blocksy and all done through the free filter theme. So we can just choose to select any of these options. Now, if you notice that the images disappear, this is something that I have noticed. We can sort that out really, really quickly and easily. We'll head back over into the Blocksy Customiser. And what we need to do is remove the lazy load option. Now, hopefully this is something that will be fixed very soon, but if you are having this problem, that's something that can sort it out. So if we come into performance and we disable the lazy load option and publish this, we just hop back over, refresh the page, our images are back, and now if we start to filter, you can see all the images stay in place. So I'm going to contact the developers of Blocksy and see if this is something they're aware of. If not, I'll let them know about it so they can have a look, and hopefully that'll be rectified by the time you see this, and if you try to put something like this into play using this combination of tools. So there we go, that's our product filter setup. There's everything set up now on our WooCommerce side of things. So we're on the home stretch now. We just have a few other things I want to show you how to use to get more out of your WooCommerce store and make it something that's actually enjoyable to use.
There are times where you need to add in additional custom product options, and for that we need to add a new plugin to handle things. So let's do that right now.
So we're going to use one called Extra Product Options. So we're going to do a search for that. Let's add a new plugin and we'll search for Extra Product Options. And once we found that, we're going to download it. So this is a theme high one. You can see over 20,000 installations and a 75 review rating with 5 stars. So it's a pretty decent plugin. We'll install that and activate it. And once that's done, we're going to start creating our custom fields for our products. Before we do, let's just make sure that we've got everything set up. So there's our extra product options. Let's hit the settings and go and take a look inside there. So we go into our advanced settings and we can just tweak the way this all works. The first thing you have is you can tweak the text that's going to be used for each of the different kind of products. So you can see we've got products having extra options. We can choose select options, simple products, add to cart, so on. So if you want to tweak those buttons, you can do that. And then you also have other settings. So hide custom fields in cart page. There's extra options here. Have a look through, see if there's anything you think is useful. Now I've already created a more detailed tutorial on this particular function. So have a look in the description below and you'll find a link to that if you want to learn more. Let's head back over to the product options. Let's just do something really simple. Let's say we want to add an extra field in that just allows someone to send this as a gift and apply a custom message that'll be included as part of the order. So all we need to do is first of all add a section. The section is going to contain or can contain multiple different custom fields. So let's create this first one and we're just going to give this an ID and we're going to call this options. The title, we'll call this options as well. Display position. Do you want to display these extra options before or after the add to cart button? Well, in this example, it makes more sense to be before. If you want to control the sort order, you can do that inside here as well. However, it's up to you whether you want to do it. It's only really useful if you have multiple different sections using this particular plugin. So we'll leave that as it is for now. Next, we'll go to the display styles, and if you want to apply custom CSS classes to the title, to the actual object itself, there's a lot of different things you can do inside here to customize the whole look and feel of it if you really want to get into that side of things. For us though, we're going to leave that as it is for now. And then we have the display rules. Now, you might not want to apply these options globally. You might want to apply them based upon a product, a specific product or products, a specific category, or specific tag. And you can stack these on top of each other in the same way we saw with the filters. So you can also set the and or. So in other words, you can just say it's a case of and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, or this one, or this one, this one, the display rules. Again, if you're not sure, just experiment. You can't do anything wrong with this anyway. So we're going to keep this really, really simple and we're going to apply it to everything. So we don't need to set any conditions. But if you did want to set conditions, we could say the product, for example, is equal to, and then we can start choose the product that we want from there. And it'll apply it to that particular product or category or whatever. Let's just undo that and we'll just say save and close. So this rule is going to be applied to every one of our products. So now we've created the container for our new section. Now we need to actually go in and add some of the fields in. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to add one field, but you could stack these on top of each other if you wanted to and create more. Okay, so we've lots of different field types, text, hidden numbers, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the option for a text area, so people can put a longer message in. We're going to give it a name, and all the names for the sections and for the custom fields and so on all have to start with an underscore. So we're going to put underscore message. The label, we're going to call this message so people know exactly what's going on. Default value, if you want to insert a default value, you can do. However, you can leave this blank, and I would probably recommend it in this example. The placeholder, well, you can just put a placeholder if you want to. We can say insert your personal message. How many columns? We're going to say this is one column, and we're going to say this is going to have 5 rows, just the kind of size of this particular field. And then if you want to apply validation, the validation just basically checks it against certain things. So we only have the option for email and number. So if you were using an email field or a numeric field, you can set that to run validation on it. However, we don't need to worry about it. Is this required? No, it's not. So we're going to leave that unchecked, and we want it to be enabled. Display style is pretty much the same as we saw earlier on. We can set a wrapper and a label class, so we can apply custom styling if we want to. But we're going to leave that as is, and we're going to just set the label position to be above the field. And then the display rules is basically exactly the same as we saw when setting up the section. So if you want to apply this to a specific product category or tag, you can do that. However, like I say, we want it globally. So we're going to say save and close. And that now has created both the section and also the individual item inside there. So let's just save those changes, and let's take a look at how this has affected the front end of our site and our products. And there we go. We're onto the front end of the site, and you can see there's our message. But we've got a little bit of a problem. We've got this horrible looking outline around it. Now, we need to change this through CSS. Just for simplicity, if you were following along with this, I've already put the CSS code information in the description below. So you can simply just take that from there. And I'll show you quickly now how we can apply that to this particular site. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back into Appearance and Customize. And inside the Customizer, we've got the option right at the bottom for additional CSS. So let's just head over to the shop section and open a product up so we can see the changes we're making in real time. And there's our message section. So come to additional CSS, and all I'm going to do is paste in the little bit of information that I've got inside there. So you can, like I say, you can just take this information and you can just paste it in if you're using the Blocksy theme, and you should get exactly the same as this. But now you can see we've got rid of that outline, and everything now sits and fits inside the design that we've set up as part of the Blocksy website. Let's publish those changes, and then we'll just hop over and refresh our page just to make sure everything is fine on the live site. And there we go. So all the spacing is now neat and tidy. The outline is gone, and everything just kind of fits into the aesthetic that we've been creating. And that's how we can start to add in additional product options that are specific to individual products, tags, categories, and so on, if you want to expand your store with these extra kinds of options.
Now, if you're shipping items to customers, you're going to need to easily be able to download and print off invoices and delivery notes. Out of the box, WooCommerce just doesn't have this ability, so we're going to add another great free plugin to handle that aspect of the sales process.
So if we take a look at an order, you'll see this is an order. If we click on the little eye icon, it'll show us the information about the order. We go in and take a look at the order in full. You can see we don't really have any way of being able to print off any of that extra information. So we need to do it manually, which kind of sucks. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another free plugin that'll add that functionality directly in. So we're simply going to do a search for WooCommerce PDF invoice and packaging slips. And there we go. Over 300,000 active installs and a 5-star rating. So this is a great plugin to open up this functionality. So let's install and activate it. Once done, we just need to say run the setup wizard, and we can just configure things. So you can drop in your details. So we'll just say this is my shop, for example, my address, which is obviously going to be your shop address. Fill out all the details that you need on here. So upload any logos you want. So we'll skip this step, for example. Attach to, and we can attach these to various different kinds of statuses. So we'll just say, for this example, we'll say new order, and we'll just say processing a completed order. That'll do. But obviously, if you want to set this up for everything or go through and take a little bit of time to see exactly what meets your specific requirements, because not everything is going to be the same for every single store. So we'll say next. Let's say display options, display the shipping address, the email, and so on. So we're going to say we want all of those, and we'll say next. What format? Depend upon what country you're in. If you're America, letter is probably going to be what you want. For probably Europe, it's going to be A4, so we'll leave that set as A4. Hop over to the next step, and we've got action buttons. So we'll say, yep, we want to show those action buttons, and next. And there we go. We've now finished that section for the setup, we said. Okay, so you've got some extra options inside you should you want to show those. So you can see you've got things like extended currency symbol support and all those kinds of things. Take your time, have a little look through, and any mistakes you may have made during the wizard, you can pretty much rectify all of those inside here. Okay, so now if we hop over and take a look at our orders, we now have these extra 3 icons. So we've got complete, we can complete this order. So we'll say, yep, okay, this order is now being completed. So that's all done, so that's marked as completed. Now we have the option for a PDF invoice, which we could print off and then include that in the package. And we've also got the PDF packaging slip. So we can click on that. That will open up and you see that will show us a packing slip. And if we come back out and take a look at the invoice, you can see there's our invoice with our pricing and all the details and things on there. So it's just one of those little things that without it, you kind of miss this if you're shipping items. But with this free plugin, you kind of fill that gap with WooCommerce. So it's something that I would recommend if you need it.
If you build it, they will come. It's not really true, is it? They won't come if they can't find it or they don't even know it exists. So that's where SEO or search engine optimization comes into play. We're going to address the basics of SEO next, but if you want to learn more, I have a more detailed tutorial on using Rank Math, our free SEO plugin, linked in the description as always.
So let's install that and then we can run through the wizard and link this through to our free account if you want to do that side of things. Okay, let's activate that. Now, the first thing you're going to see when you go through the wizard is to connect to your account. You can set up a completely free account with Rank Math and it just speeds up the process if you want to use this on multiple sites. However, if you want to skip this, you can skip it and just go ahead and do it all manually. I'm going to connect it to my account just so it's all set up. And we're going to say, yep, we'll say that's perfectly fine. There we go. So now we go into the wizard setup. You've got 3 different modes. If you're a pro user, you'll get the 3rd option. Otherwise, if you're a free user, you'll just get the easy and advanced. Now, if you're not used to SEO, I'd recommend just jumping into the easy setup because you can still configure everything afterwards when you get more accustomed to this. And again, I've already created a tutorial on how to use Rank Math if you want to check that out. So this is going to be more of a whistle-stop tour as opposed to a detailed tutorial. Okay, so we're going to say we'll start the wizard and we'll go through the different steps. So my WordPress is a web shop. That's fine. Business type. You can choose between organization and what type of organization you are. We'll leave that as it is for now. But if you're a local business, you can also set that up inside there. Put your company name in. If it already hasn't been picked up from your site, we didn't change that, so you could change that if you wanted to. Upload your logo, your default social share image in. So we can just say, we'll just choose an image, which just take this one, for example. And then if someone shares a page that doesn't have a custom image on Facebook or Twitter, this will be the fallback image for it. So you can just put whatever you want in there. And again, you can come back and change this at any time in the settings for Rank Math. None of these things are written in stone. They're just starting points. We'll save and continue. And then you can see we can choose to connect to Google services. So this is where you can do things like verify your site ownership with the Google Search Console, track keywords and any errors, set up Google Analytics and so on. So I would recommend doing that. If you don't have those accounts, pretty much all of those are completely free. Set those up and then you can connect the Google services. Again, if you want to skip it at this point, you can do. You can skip this step and you can go back and put all those pieces of information in later on when you have them to hand. We'll say skip this step. And then we should be pretty much done. So we'll say return to the dashboard. Now, like I say, this is not an extensive tutorial on how to use SEO in the slightest. That's already been covered in its own dedicated tutorial. However, what I want to show you is how you can basically start to apply SEO to your products and your site. Because there's no point in having a site if no one can find the actual products or the site itself. So with this all set up, you can come in and you can tweak these, and I would highly recommend you take a look at my video that shows you how to do all of this. But what we're going to do is we're going to hop over to, for example, our product section. So let's open up a product. And once we're inside there, we can choose a product. Now you'll see we've got this extra column over on the right hand side that gives us some extra information about our search ranking. It's a bit squashed up at the moment. That's because we've got WooCommerce and I've kind of squashed my screen up a little bit. But this will show you the keyword that's been set. It'll show you any internal, external links and things along those lines. So it's a kind of brief, quick overview. Now if we go in and take a look, for example, at this textured vase, Once we go in there, we'll now have some new options available. So if we scroll down, you can see we've now got our Rank Math SEO section. So we can see exactly how we rank at the moment in the top right hand corner, 8 out of 10, pretty poor. But now we can come in and we can fine tune all those options to get something a little bit more focused on the search engines. So you can say, what's your featured keyword? So we're going to put in textured vase, vase, whatever you're from in the world. And we'll say, there we go. So that now immediately increases our score because we've told it what's the keyword or the key phrase that we want to rank against. This is going to give us a more reflective score. So the first thing you want to do is just drop in your focus keyword, and then you can go through and start to fine tune all the different options. So at the moment, there's our snippet, and this is what the search engines will show up. What we want to do is edit that and give it something a little bit more unique. Now how this works is effectively you have these placeholders, title, separator, site name. And that's what you can see: the title of this page, texted vase, the separator, which is the little dash, and then the site name, which is my WordPress. Now, obviously, this doesn't make a lot of sense, so we can easily remove those and just drop in what we want to place in there. And this will then rank that based upon the maximum number of characters you should have in your title. And you can see this gives us a sort of rating across there from red through to green. Your permalink, you can generally tend to leave that as it is, don't worry too much. And then we can drop in a description to be a little bit more descriptive and pique the interest of our users, our potential buyers, using things like the featured keyword. You can see textured vase, using those in the description, the title and so on to enhance our ability to rank better for those keywords and phrases. So let's drop something in there that makes a bit more sense, and again using and focusing on those particular phrases. So you can see there's our textured vase in the title, textured vase in the description. So that's those side of things done. We can also come over into the social section, and we can now configure this to work on Facebook and Twitter. So if people are sharing this, we can set up a custom image for it, custom title, custom description, all those kinds of really useful bits of information. It is worth noting though that even if you don't insert anything inside here, it will pick up the information that you set up inside the general area. So if we take a look at, for example, the preview of the Facebook option, you'll see this is what it currently looks like if I shared it. And if we hop over to Twitter, you can see it looks great on there as well. So we don't have to do this work, but it's there if you want to make those changes and fine tune and tweak this to get optimal results on those social networks. Now, once you've covered off those basics, if you scroll down the page, you'll see you've got some extra options that allow you to check how good your SEO actually is for this particular product page. Anything that's checked, you're doing well on. Anything with an X, you want to go back and take a look at and fine tune and go through these. Now, not everything is going to be something you can action on every single product, but at least you cover most of those off. You should get a really good starting point for your SEO. So while this is only scratching the surface of what you can do when it comes to SEO, at least this gives you a good starting point, and I would highly recommend you check out the dedicated video tutorial on how to use Rank Math for your SEO.
Now we've built everything, how does the site rate when it comes to the speed and load times? Well, let's run a couple of tests and see what we're starting with, and then see if we can improve things a little.
So let's just quickly analyze what our site is like right now. We'll use GTmetrix for the first of the tests, and we'll also use page speed insights from Google. Now, we're not looking to get top scores and tweak everything. We're looking to get a baseline and then see if we can use the free plugin that's part of SiteGround, SG Optimizer, to enhance this just a little bit more. There are obviously a lot of options out there that allow you to fine tune and tweak the whole process of speeding up a website. Things like WP Rocket, there's lots of different options out there. But because we've used SiteGround, we're going to use the free option. And this is where we are to start off with no optimization turned on whatsoever for our homepage, which we know has several different images on there. And I think this is a pretty good starting point. We are 1.2 seconds to loading time. We're getting A across the board and a 96 for performance and 100% for structure. So Blocksy is already doing a really good job alongside Stackable for the design that we've used. So this is where we are when it comes to GTmetrix. Let's now take a look at where we are with PageSpeed Insights. Let's drop in our URL and let's just run the test on here as well. So there we go. So let's run our analyze test, and this is going to test it on both the desktop and the mobile. Now Google is going to give you a ranking on both of those different kinds of devices, and you can use this as a starting point. The higher, obviously, the better. And there we go. We're starting off with a score of 63 on mobiles. And if we take a look at desktop, 82 across there. So already a pretty decent starting point, because be honest about it, page speed insights is quite difficult to get good results on without tweaking and understanding what you're doing, which kind of goes sort of beyond what we can do with this tutorial. But if I can give you some tips on how to use the SG Optimizer to at least eke a little bit more out of this, you could then spend some more time doing even more optimization if you think this is worth your time. So let's just enable the SG Optimizer with the default settings. So I've configured absolutely nothing inside here. If we come in, this is just all the default settings for each of these different setups. So nothing you can see is turned on here, pretty much working on a blank setup. So let's just hop back over into GT metrics first of all. This is a score 96 and 100 and a 1.2 second LCP. Now it's worth bearing in mind that will always be fluctuations in this that you need to understand, because that's coming down to the server your site is on, how busy it is, your traffic, how long it takes to go back and forth. There's so many different variables. So just take this as an indicator, not as gospel. So let's just run this retest. We'll see the results we have underneath to compare. So we'll rerun this test and let that run through the whole process. And we'll also hop over to the page speed insights, and we got 63 and 82. So let's run that analysis again and see if we get better results now just with SG Optimizer simply enabled. And there we go. We've actually dropped in performance now by switching SG Optimizer on. So what we need to do is just go in and start tweaking this a little bit to get some speed out of this and start to optimize things. So let's hop back over into the SG Optimizer. And inside here now, let's go through and set up some of the things I think are going to be important. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to defer the render block in JS. So you're going to say confirm that. Now, whenever you make changes with anything like this, you're going to need to make sure that you've saved the changes if you need to, and go back and test your page out to make sure that everything is working okay. So we hop back over to the site and we'll refresh this. We'll make sure that everything is still looking the way it should do. We'll hop over into the shop section. We'll make sure that our filters are working. So we'll come into the shop, for example. We'll hit decor. We'll try accessories, just the price. Okay, so we can see everything is pretty much working there. So we know that those changes have taken effect and haven't caused an issue. So now what you're going to do is you're going to come back and you're going to rerun these tests. So this is kind of a little bit laborious, but what it does is it allows you to test the site out, test the changes you're making. Do they have a positive or a negative impact? And then also go through and just check to make sure that everything works on your site. If you just apply a pile of different settings and then run the tests afterwards, you can just not really know what the heck is causing the problems when you encounter them. And believe me, when you start minifying, compressing and doing all these kinds of things, there is the opportunity to have problems. So just applying that render blocking option, you can see we've boosted our performance up by 5 points. We've also reduced our LCP from 1.3 to 1 second. And we've taken our TBT from 3 milliseconds, which is already pretty quick, to 0 milliseconds. So you can see we are getting a boost in performance. Let's just hop back over now to Page Speed Insight. Let's run the analysis on there as well, and we can see what we're getting from that. But the real message that I need to get across when it comes to using something like SG Optimizer or WP Rocket or something along those lines, it is a case of testing each of the different options out. It takes a little bit of time, but it really can pay dividends. So you can see we've already jumped up a few points using the SG Optimizer. We jump to desktop, again, we've jumped up a few points there. So I think with a little bit of time and effort testing all these different settings out, you could boost this even further. So there's different things that we can do. For example, if we come back into SG Optimizer, we could optimize our media. So when I uploaded these images, I didn't run any real optimization on them. So you could probably reduce the file sizes a little bit more by using the optimization. So you could run this through to optimize the images you currently have on the site. The same goes with the new image optimization. You could enable this, and then any images that are uploaded to your site through your dashboard will automatically be optimized. We also have generate WebP copies of new images. And WebP is a new format which modern browsers, or most modern browsers, should support, and they have same quality or better quality and smaller file sizes. So you can enable that for all uploaded images, and you can also retrospectively do that on any site files that you currently have. Then we take a look at things like your environment optimization. You've got things like enable HTTPS. This will force it to make sure, but we've already done that, so we don't need to worry about those options. But what I would suggest is, even if you don't really understand what these options are, you don't really need to in a lot of cases. It's a case of enable an option, test your site, make sure it works, and then run some optimization speed tests to see how that impacts the loading time of your site. this is something that could be a dedicated video in its own right. But hopefully this has given you an indication of the kinds of things you can do to speed things up.
Now that your site is ready to launch, why not grab my free ebook, 10 Things to Do Before Launching a WordPress Website. Links in the description below, you can grab that. Now, if you want to learn more about WooCommerce, I have a full playlist full of super useful info. Check that out next. Now, as always, all of the applicable links are in the description below, and if you've made it this far in the video, why not give that thumbs up button a click? It really does help me out. While you're at it, if you like this content, why not also click the subscribe button and slap the bell icon? However, if you didn't get value from this video, simply hit the thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. My name is Paul C, this is WP Tuts, and until next time, take care.